Welcome, everyone, to the Hartford Board of School Directors. It's April the 23rd, 2025, and we will begin our meeting with a call to order. Do we have any changes, additions on the agenda? Anyone? Okay, ask for a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay, motion's made and carried. We will go down to the governance process. Section 4, policy GP2. We have a request that the board needs to make a determination tonight. We have a family in our district that has been coming to our district. Has been coming to our schools for a number of years. They just recently moved to New Hampshire. Their request to us as a board is to allow their children there's 2 children in the system, to allow their children to finish in our district versus having to change for this last month or month and a half over to the New Hampshire district. It does not cost us anything for them to stay in our district because we've already been given the funds for these kiddos. And so we need to talk about that. If you would like to voice your opinions or ask any questions, hopefully I'll be able to answer them for the family. Yes, sir.
Madam Chairman, if I may, just having experienced moves with kids before, I would urge everyone to allow the kids to stay in our school district until the end of the school year. It's less disruptive to the family, to the school. It's not a matter of money. It's just doing the right thing by the students.
Okay.
Pretty simple.
Okay, thank you. Anything?
Echo everything that Jeremy said. Yeah.
Okay,
They've already been planned for
right.
as far as our
exactly.
school year. Yeah.
Anyone from this side of the board? Nothing? Okay, we need to make a decision then.
I move that we
Determination.
approve. So it's really truly not a tuition waiver because we've already received the
Exactly, it's
tuition.
not.
I
Right.
move that we allow the students, if that's appropriate, if there's 2 of them, the students to remain in the Hartford School District for the remainder of the 2024-25 school year.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okay,
We need-
motion carries. We will let them know that. Thank you very much. And would you like to announce our next presenters?
I'd love to. So we have some representatives from the Ottauquechee School today, and they are here to present on what they are calling the Wolf Way, a program called Crew. And I'm going to let them all explain more about what this all means. We do.
Could you come up to the microphone? Thank you.
Make sure
That's fine.
Sure, absolutely.
One thing that I could ask.
We'll do that.
You want to view your slides?
Yeah, we'll stand.
I'm up here.
Thanks, Jerry.
Just be really close to the mic so everybody online can hear.
The Wolf Way by Nala Taylor, Carter Potwin, Noah Potwin, 5th graders, Amelia Donahue, Principal, Ottauquechee School.
Agenda. Oh.
You pull it down.
Agenda. What is the Wolf Way? How did we get that here? Experience a den meeting. How the Wolf Way has impacted Ottauquechee School.
So I'm going to do a little of the background. The Wolf Way comes from EL Education's concept of crew. So crew is both a structure and a culture. The structure part of it is dedicated time throughout in every school day in the morning and afternoon, but also throughout the school year to have routines and traditions that are really about building strong community and strong relationships among students, among teachers, and among teachers and students together. Meetings have a really set routine, which you'll experience tonight, of a greeting, a reading, an activity or initiative, and reflection. And they can often incorporate a lot of elements we think of with restorative practices, like time for apologies, and appreciations of one another. You have an ornery screen. The culture part of it is that it really takes the view of school from being about what each individual is doing to really being school as a team sport. So everybody is working together to help everybody become smarter and stronger together than we could if we were only focused on our own selves. So crew is about increasing belonging and inclusion. It's very much tied to, you guys want to take one? It's very much about character development. So it's about becoming ethical people and effective learners, having the skills and mindsets and attributes to be able to learn, to be good friends and teammates, and to contribute to a better world. Thanks. And it's also about shared leadership. So teachers and students having a big voice in how we do school and how they want their community to be.
It is still sharing on the Zoom, but it is not sharing here locally.
Okay.
It's, yeah. It's the projector. Turning it around. Thank you.
We have a couple of videos, so.
They should still be able to see them online. It's just for everyone here, that's where the issue is. Yeah.
Okay. Oh,
We're back.
Okay. I think we can advance to the next slide. We're gonna skip that video. Okay, so how did we get here? Like I said, shared leadership is really important. So we've had a partnership with EL Education for the last few years around literacy. And I feel really awkward.
You can turn that wherever you need.
We don't know. Okay. And so for the last few years, we have sent teachers to the EL National Conference, and teachers have also been going on site visits to schools that don't just use EL Education's literacy curriculum, but do other parts of their full school model. And crew is a huge part of that. So the team of teachers that went to the national conference in Colorado a couple of years ago, last school year in December, they went to a ton of sessions about crew, and they brought back the idea of implementing crew at our school. And so they spent the entire second half of last year, like very thoughtfully rolling out that process with the staff, which has turned into then being a Wolf Way committee. We needed to rebrand it with our mascot, the wolf. And so that teacher committee is very active this year, and they got summer curriculum funding to write the first 6 weeks of crew lessons for everyone to kind of get everyone in the rhythm before people then kind of took on more of their own creativity and started developing those in their teams. And there also has been a ton of student leadership and family involvement, especially in the initial process of picking the character strengths that were really going to anchor the Wolf Way or crew for us. And Noah's going to tell you more about that in a second. And then just wanted to highlight that our partnership with EL continues to be important because we have quite a few days this year at OQS for strategic planning and coaching to support the work for crew. And because we're in this network, we get to keep going to see full model schools. So we're planning to go to see the Conservatory Lab Charter School in Boston, which has like a decades old practice of crew, later this spring.
So I was a student. I was a student I was a student leader last year, and I and the other student leaders worked on character strengths that we wanted to do for the school to focus on these character strengths. Then we talked about them in classes, and the teachers and students voted on what they thought that the character strengths should be.
We play the video on that page.
Leaders, we have done some activities discussing character traits that would help everyone treat each other better in our school. Treating each other with kindness is an important thing, and we treat people the way we want to be treated.
In the next few weeks, everyone in our school will have a chance to vote on the habits of all of us will agree on the whole school.
We want to share one of the activities we came up with so that you can learn more about habits of character too. We did an activity with a partner where we talked about which habits mattered to us the most and which ones would help our school.
In the activity, everyone gets a partner. Your team of 2 people starts with 2 habits, and you talk about them together.
Then together you pick the habit that you think would help the school the most. You keep that one and you put the one you don't want back on a table or the middle of the circle where all the groups can see it. Then you and your partner will team up with another 2 people. You share a habit you picked and why. The other team shares their habit and why they picked it. Then your group of 4 people goes back to look at these habits that were set aside. You talk together to see if there is any habit there that you think is more important than the one you picked. At this point, you can make one more trade.
In your class, you might have more people or fewer people. So your teacher might decide to do more rounds or have more people in each group. If you want to, you can record all the habits on a tournament bracket, kind of like the one Miss Nisses uses for March Madness.
My favorite habit is being kind, no swearing, share toys, and be nice. Later this month, everyone in our school will have a chance to vote on the habits of character that all of us will agree on as a whole school. Hey, we have have to treat our school how they wanted to treat it. So help us with other ideas to help the school to be nicer and funner. During student leadership, it's time to experience a den meeting.
Share your name, your role, and something about you.
You want us to start?
Yeah, sure.
All right.
My name is Kathy. I'm a board member and the clerk, and something about me. I have 4 kids.
My name is Jeremy Warren. I just moved back to Vermont from Georgia after 20 years. I graduated here in 1996, which is just a couple years ago. And I have too many guitars.
I'm Nancy Russell, and I'm the chair of the school board here. My pleasure. I'm from Texas. I have been a rescue scuba diver. I have a private pilot's license, and I jumped out of airplanes with a parachute.
Wow.
That's news to all of us.
I don't know how to follow that.
I feel like I need to go again.
She just made my lifeboat. So
I'm Katie Sutton. I'm your superintendent, and I have 4 brothers and 2 sisters.
My name is Walker Garthwaite. I'm the student representative, and I do a lot of theater.
I'm Jacob Vizina. I'm the director of finance, and I love hockey.
I'm Sherry Torrey. I'm the board recorder, and I graduated 20 years before Mr. Warren did from Hartford High School.
it's just a couple years ago.
If anyone else wants to share, they can raise their hand.
Do we call on people in the audience? Sure.
Oh, here's someone.
Yeah.
We're not done.
We'll call on you later. But what would you like to share about yourself? Sean.
Great. Anybody else before we go on?
Oh, yeah.
Come on up.
Okay.
Come on up to the microphone so everybody online can hear those. Icebreaker.
My name's Mark Buckland. I teach student created projects at the high school, and I have a 2-year-old son named Jack.
Nice. Thank you, Mark.
We each month we celebrate or pick one of these character strengths, which would be joy, respect, perseverance, awareness, courage, or kindness. One for each month, and we'd do a greeting based on them each maybe week or 2, and we do an activity and a reading about them or video.
We are going to show you the definitions of all the character strengths. We would like you to each read one out loud.
You can see them.
We can make sure. Start with
Respect. Would you like me to read the definition, what you have to? I can accept somebody for who they are, even when they're different from me or have different ideas. I can take care of myself, others, and my surroundings.
perseverance. I can keep trying even when things get hard.
Courage. I can be brave and make good choices in the face of fear, even if it might be scary. I can stand up for myself, others, and what I believe in.
Thank you.
Awareness. I can be aware of my actions and how they affect others. I can think before I speak or act. I can take responsibility for my actions.
Joy. I can find positive in all situations.
Kindness. I can say and do nice things. I am helpful to others and do good deeds.
For our activity, we have selected to do a ball toss, and we're going to do a simplified version. There are many rounds of this that can get more and more challenging, but given our configuration, could we have like 5 or 6 volunteers from the audience come up and make a little circle in the front? Is that allowed, school board?
Absolutely.
And then Carter, you can give the directions. Oh, sure. Okay.
Say good morning.
Good evening.
Oh, good evening. To whoever you want to, name and roll, toss or pass the ball to that person. Sit down after you've received the ball. Everyone keeps going until the ball gets back to the first person.
And you can sit down or just kind of scooch where you are. That's to keep track of who's gone.
Good evening. My name is Mark Buckland, and I teach student created projects at that.
Oh, wait, sorry. You're saying good evening to the person you're tossing to. Mhm.
Now, who is that?
Sorry, you're using her name. Thank you, Michaela.
Now stand. Yep.
Now if you will, you have to remember who passed to you.
Same order or reverse order?
Reverse order.
Reverse order.
Reverse order. Okay. Good.
Yep.
Good evening, Deb.
Not bad.
Not bad. You got one more challenge.
Now you have to do it in a minute.
Ask them how fast.
How fast can you do it? Do you think you can do it?
10 seconds.
Do we have
5 seconds.
a time?
5 seconds?
7 seconds.
7 seconds.
Do it backwards.
Let's go forwards this time.
Okay.
Okay. You want to say on your mark and set, go.
On your mark, get ready, set, go.
Woo!
I think they aced it.
Second.
Yeah.
Amazing. Can we go to the detail?
Sign 'em up.
For participating.
Thanks for participating.
Next slide, please.
How did you show respect, perseverance, awareness, courage, kindness, or joy during the game?
We can let them answer.
I think by making eye contact and saying good evening in the person's name, you're showing respect, awareness, and just by being up there, you're showing courage. Yeah. It was fun. Trying to be
Anyone else?
Yes, it breaks up our normal meetings quite a bit. This is a nice change for us.
Yes, it
And
is.
it's great to see everybody, more participants from the student side, the faculty side, administration side, and you guys are really brave.
How did you guys feel about trying out the den meeting / crew meeting?
It was fun. That was a lot of fun.
It's
Awesome.
awesome. It was awesome.
Yeah, of course.
And then we have one more slide. So we just want to thank you for experiencing a den meeting with us and letting us mix up your format a little bit and dealing with the tech at the same time. We wanted to just share a couple more things about the bigger picture. So we have monthly pack time assemblies where you can see in that bottom picture, we're circled up as an entire school, learning about one of the character strengths. More recently, those have included some student skits. We have a pledge that we say as a whole school at that assembly that one of our teachers wrote and that we say once a week during morning announcements. And that's the top video, if it will play. It's very quick.
We are the OQS Wolves. We show respect for ourselves and others. We persevere when things get tough. We are aware of our actions. We demonstrate courage in learning and community. We act with kindness always. In this way, we find joy. This is the Wolf Way.
So for folks that couldn't hear, is there any way that you guys could just do that right there on the microphone now? No? No how?
We usually have a teacher to lead it, and I'm not sure I have it memorized. So
That's no pressure. Okay.
and then we have our monthly we have weekly awards, high paws that are all centered on the character strengths for students, and then a monthly golden paw, which is a student that's just exemplified a character strength for the whole month. We also have whole school celebrations every month. So that one is reading at the beach, where the whole school came to the gym with there were blow up flamingos and a beach umbrella and all sorts of things. And we just kind of read together as a whole school. And I know we're very long on time. The fourth graders wanted to be here tonight and just shared a few reflections about how crew has impacted our school. They're quick, I think.
Hi, my name's Alina, and I like the Wolf Way because it helps us in a way that not everything else does. And yeah, basically that.
What do you mean by that?
What I mean by that is when we do stuff, sometimes if you just think of the Wolf Way, if you're having a hard time, just think of the Wolf Way and how it's you can do this, and with courage, that it kind of just helps us a lot, especially joy and courage and yeah. Hi, my name's Alina, and I like the Wolf Way because it helps us. The Wolf Way helps people to achieve their goals here at OQS. It can help us to set the specific goals and work towards having a good school year and treating ourselves and others how they want to be treated. Our life depends on how good our education is, and the Wolf Way helps us to be good people. Hi, I'm Amaya. And I'm Devin. And we're going to talk about the Wolf Way. I think the Wolf Way is fair to our school because it helps kids like us understand different character strengths and how they're important. And now, den meetings. Den meetings are a way in the morning to start the day. There are a ton of different ways to do a den meeting. Like, you could have kids run den meetings. Like in our class, we all get turns running den meetings, and we add a reading or a video. Then we add an initiative, and at the end we have a debrief. And it helps us make a good way to start the day. We're ready. Hi, I'm Annika, and I'm going to be telling you about the Wolf Way. I like the Wolf Way because it makes us more joyful, respectful, perseverant, makes us have more awareness, courage, and kindness. And I also like the golden pause at the end of each month for each month of an awareness that we have. Or not awareness, Wolf Way. Character strength that we have. And I think I like those because it like represents like one or a few kids from each class on what they did right. And I also like den meetings because it sets a good start for the day. And in our class, we get to students get to lead the den meeting. Like we get to pick a greeting, a reading, an initiative, and a debrief. And then we start ELA. And I think it's a good start to our day because it can be silly, and then the debrief can like calm us down. And I think I really like that. We're ready. Hi. I'm a...
Thank you, everyone.
So, God do have lots of courage.
Thank you again. This is such a wonderful meeting to see all of these students here. So thank you for being here. And we have another presentation that features the work of our students. So Mr. Buckland and Hartford High School students who have are going to share more about their student created independent project work. Come on up.
Turn that wherever you want. Yeah.
You guys all good? Take over.
All right. First of all, thanks guys. Thanks for having us. Like I said, my name is Mark Buckland and I teach a class called Student Created Projects at Hartford High School. The goal for tonight is to go over that a little bit and then to hear from some students about some of the cool work that they've been doing. So we can go to the next slide. Quick overview of the class. It's an elective credit that's offered through our Independent Learning Center. Ideally, it's more of a junior, senior year class. It gives you a little bit more flexibility in your schedule while allowing you to kind of go off campus if you have your license. We do allow freshmen and sophomores to take it, but we kind of encourage juniors and seniors, again, with the flexibility. We truly believe that anyone and everyone can and should take this course at least once in their time at Hartford High School, because we really do think it's an opportunity for them to find value and validation in their passions as a learning experience. It's completely student driven, so they kind of run with it, as you'll see with our students behind us. We do have a culminating event, little plug. We do an exhibition night in the gym on June 5th. It's a wonderful event for those of you that have been there. We open up the gym. Each student has a booth and they can kind of demonstrate their learning however they see fit. We open it up to students and staff toward the end of the school day, and then we open it up to the public from 4 to 5:30. And again, it's kind of a drop in, walk around, ask questions, and kind of see what the kids are up to. I would love to talk more about kind of the specifics of the program, but I think tonight is more about these kids and hearing from them and what they've been doing. So if anybody's interested or has questions that don't come up tonight, please feel free to email me at bucklandm@hartfordschools.net. But again, like I said, tonight's a chance to hear from these guys and hopefully hear how this class and this opportunity has benefited them personally. So you're going to meet each single one of these guys, and here we go.
Hi, I'm Nathan Campbell. I'm a senior at Hartford, and this semester is my 4th time taking Mr. Buckland's ILC class. I first took it as a sophomore as a hybrid with my driver's ed course. And then I loved it so much, I took it again last year. And now with my very lenient senior schedule, I've taken it twice, once last semester and then now again this time. Since the start in my sophomore year, I wanted to write a book. I've always liked writing and never really had an opportunity to fully engage with it how I wanted to. And so in, was that 2023? That would have been. I started with a map, which is shown there on that screen. I just like making maps in general. And I, for some reason, grew really attached to this one and decided to come up with a story for it. And so that first year was spent creating a large overarching plot document. I think it was like 60 something pages, just this happens in this, next, almost like a screenplay. And then afterwards, I spent the following few years actually writing what would be basically the first draft. The book is called Aspect, and I don't want to have to go into my own TED talk about what it is, but in terms of how the ILC has helped me with this process, actually having a time set aside for this work that I want to do helps me a lot. I struggle a lot with motivation. And so even though I'm not being told you have to do this, these are your deadlines, you're getting graded, just knowing that this is a time set aside to work on this and that no matter what I get done, it was something, has helped quite a lot. Is there anything else I should add, Buckland? Thank you.
Thank you, Nate.
I'm Cora Winslow, and for my project, I am sewing my prom dress. So this is not the prom dress. Because I personally would never wear this, especially if you see the back. But I was sewing during my block. I should mention that I took the class last year as well, and I shadowed music teachers because that's what I want to be. And so I shadowed elementary, middle school, and now I'm doing high school here. And I just wanted to test out, see which grades I liked. I ended up going with middle school, just so you know. But I liked it so much, and especially I liked Buckland and how he would schedule the class and how we just go with the flow. And sewing was always something that I loved to do. So sewing a prom dress was even cooler. And I always loved thinking that I could go to prom and people would ask me, you know, where'd you get your dress? And I'd be like, I didn't buy it. I made it myself. So I actually brought the fabric, but I won't bore you guys with that. I just think that this class is very good because it's structured in a way that it's flexible. So if one day you're just not feeling into it, it's okay. You can just take a little time, take a break. But the rest of the days when you're just ready to go, you can just go into your project and get it done. And so, like I said, I ended up making this, which is to me really cool because I made a whole dress and it fits me like really well, actually. So I just think that having this class is awesome because it allows you to bring out your creative side in a way. And it helps you grow as a creator and a person in general. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Cora.
Hi, I'm Amara Johnson. I'm a sophomore and I also made a dress, not for my prom though. I wanted to take this class originally as a junior, but I got into it my sophomore year as to be paired with my driver's ed. And so I didn't really have a plan on what I was going to do, but I knew that this was sort of something that I wanted to look at because I want this as one of my options for getting into college. And so I wanted to be able to like start a portfolio early so that I won't have to be rushing my senior year to get everything together. And it was a really, really great class to take. I loved how it was structured with me being able to have like full creative freedom over everything that I wanted to do, but it was also had enough structure to it. It wasn't just like, oh, do it whatever you want, like whenever you want. We had like check-in times to make sure that we were on track. And I really liked that part. And I also, like Cora said, I liked how if you had a day where you were super tired or something like that, or you were way behind on your other work and classes, you could take that time to catch up or do whatever you have to do, but then just get back to work the next day. And I ended up making this dress that you see on the screen. It's a black dress. You don't see the back of it, but it's backless. It was made of polyester, and it's sort of just like an outline of a dress that I want to make for my prom dress next year. That wasn't the original plan, but I just kind of went with the flow, and I really liked how it was structured.
Thank you, Amar.
I'm Devin Potter. I'm a senior, and I think this is either my 4th or my 5th time taking this class. I have taken it both semesters this year, and when I first started it first semester, I went in with this idea that I wanted to be an X-ray technician, and that's kind of what I wanted to do after high school. And there was a lot of time in trying to get into the hospital because I wasn't 18 at the time, so it wasn't as easy of a process. And in the meantime, me and Buckland were brainstorming other ideas and different things that I could do, different shadowings. And we found that teaching was an opportunity, and it was kind of an interest of mine. It just wasn't what I thought I would be doing. And so I did that twice every week for that semester. And then when I finally got into the hospital, I stopped teaching, and that was towards the end of the semester. So it took me all semester to get there. I did it. And when I did it, it wasn't exactly what I had thought that going in and being an X-ray technician was. And it turns out that it wasn't necessarily what I wanted to do anymore. So then I went back to the teaching idea, and I am back in a different classroom, but I'm doing it 2 days a week again in an elementary school. And I've found that I want to go to college for elementary education. And I wouldn't have been able to learn that the X-ray tech wasn't what I wanted to do if it wasn't for the class and being able to leave school and go and shadow and really see what it was. And same with teaching, I wouldn't have been able to really figure that out either. So that was really good. And then you can see the ILC card on the bottom there. I have been working with Buckland on exhibition night. And so basically I help him plan the organization part of it. So like all the behind the scenes work to get the night together and for kids to go in. I work with him to really get it all set up, and yeah. And then I also have taken on the Instagram page for the ILC and started rebooting that and getting it back up and kind of sharing a lot of like our students' projects. So we're in the process of getting that done, but I really believe in the ILC class. And I think that if you have the opportunity, you should definitely take it. It's a lot of time that you really get to explore your interests, and it doesn't necessarily have to be your career. It could be like a book or, you know, really anything, a dress. But it's a good chunk of time to be able to really explore what you want to do. So yeah.
Thank you, Devin.
Hello, everyone. My name is Logan LaPole, and I'm a senior. My project was tattooing, and before I went to join ILC, I started getting into it about a month before I took the class, and I didn't really have too much time to really do it. There was no time in my day, so I decided to take the class. And when I went up to Mr. Buckland with this idea, he was all board with it. He loved it. So I love the class, how it's structured, because I was able to work at my own pace. So I didn't have to go straight into tattooing. I started off with a book that explained everything, like how to tattoo, and I read that for about 2 weeks, studying everything, writing down everything, making documents. And then I went up to Buckland and I was like, can I bring in my tattoo gun? He's like, go for it. So I brought in my stuff, and every day after that, I started tattooing. Every single day, I would do different ones. And up on the screen, the bottom one, it's all smudgy and blue. That was my first attempt when I did it in the class. And it's not pretty. But I was given hours and hours, and that top picture is what I do now.
Nice.
And thanks to this class and this opportunity, I have been given the time to put all of my effort and actually get better at what I want to do. And this class actually helped me choose what I want to do for a career. And I am going to college for tattooing, thanks to this class and Mr. Buckland.
Thank you, Logan.
Hello, my name is Aubrey Vale and I'm a junior. I took Buckland's class last semester and it really gave me time to work on the Unified Club. I'm the leader of the Unified Club and I'm also very busy, so it was very hard to plan out meetings. I also run the Instagram page, but additionally, I would go in for reading with the students and I got to make connections that I wouldn't have made in our regular meeting time. If you don't know what the Unified Club is, it's mainly for inclusion of students with intellectual disabilities, but really all are able to join. We also have soccer, and I was able to make time for plans with coaching as well. And I think this class is really good for anything that you wouldn't have time for without it. And that's all I really have to say.
Thank you, Aubrey.
So mine's a little bit big, and if you give me a second, I'll just open this. Sorry for taking all that time. Anyways, my project started out as not this. It started out originally with something relating to photography, because that's another very large passion of mine. And I was originally thinking, I'm Scottish, by the way. I was originally, if that wasn't clear, I was originally thinking of a history through photos of Scotland, and then that went to a history of bagpipes through photos. And then I realized, well, my late grandmother stole a practice chanter from an aunt of mine without her knowing. That was her late husband's. And I still have that. And that top photo is a photo of it. It's also right here, the stolen chanter. And I thought, well, I have this. I can repair it. Why not learn to play it and maybe learn the bagpipes? So I did that. And this class enabled me, it gave me lots of time to reach out to individuals like the person who helped me repair my chanter and his son, Mr. Ian McHarg, who is my bagpipe teacher. And turns out that we know them through family connections as well. What a small world. But it gave me about, I'd say 60 minutes a day, if not more, to practice playing on this, which is what you learn on. And that led me over winter break to be able to go and get a full set of great Highland bagpipes. Don't worry, I'm not going to play them because that would really hurt my ears as well. But yeah, and did you want me? If you'll put up with me playing one thing, I'll do that for you on this, which is much quieter. So thank you. Thank you. That was a song called Rowan Tree. But back to this class. It gave me loads of time to practice. And as someone who played previously for 8 years, the recorder, that sort of gave me a step up. And I somehow managed to learn to play the bagpipes in roughly give or take 5 months, which is, it's kind of short.
And then, as others mentioned, we have exhibition night where you get to share your project. And as you can see in the rightmost photo, that's me standing next to my project board, holding the bagpipes in full Scottish getup, which is my dad's that he wore for his wedding. This class really allowed me to explore a newfound passion of mine that I love. It allowed me to explore my family heritage, my identity, and who I am. And along with just giving me lots of time to express my creativity and what I wanted to do. And I'd very much recommend it to any other student who wants to explore their passions, hobbies, etc., and have plenty of time for that. Now I'll get away with this.
Hi, everyone. I'm Michaela Anderson. I'm a junior at Hartford High School. And I took this skip class last semester, so fall. And I did something similar to Devin, which was a job shadow. I went into this class really having absolutely no clue what I wanted to do. But, when you get to your, junior year, you start thinking, okay, well, I kind of have to have an idea of what I want to do. And so I was like, okay, I like kids. Let's give teaching a shot. And so I started at Hartford High School in Cara Garrow's classroom and was a TA for like a couple weeks. And I was like, this really isn't for me. I can't do high school. And so I was like, okay, let's go next door to the middle school. And I worked with a couple different teachers, was shadowing in there and just kind of getting a feel of what it's like in several grades. Keep in mind, primarily English. I'm an English person. Other subjects, not really. So I went over there and found out that really wasn't for me either, and I'm young right now. So then I was like, okay, let's try elementary school. And so I went to 3 different elementary schools. I went to OQS, WES, and DBS. And I focused primarily in like 2nd and 1st grade, a little bit of kindergarten. And I worked with several different teachers, and specifically at Woodstock Elementary School, I worked with the assistant principal, Lori Beelan, and just got to work with just a wide array of kids, make a bunch of friendships, and just get a feel of what it's actually like to be in the classroom working with kids, and also taking on the role as a teacher, which mad respect for that. So just through all of that, I did a compilation of interviews with a bunch of teachers I had worked with to see what schooling it took, just the stress, how it had changed for them, how long they'd been there, and just kind of came to a conclusion that this is something that really sounds amazing to me that I really want to go into. And I'll be continuing this. I'm taking the class again next year. So I'll be continuing this project and taking the Reading Buddies program from Harper Fallon. So yeah, this class is it's truly a class that has allowed me to go in. I'm so excited to go to that class every day. And being in high school, you're not always excited to go to every single class, but skip class, I'm always overjoyed to go in there, always know what I'm going to do. Had a great connection with Buckland. And a big thing for me was getting me out of my shell because I'm a very shy person. But he super helped me with that. And I just think it's great for anyone that has a passion, that doesn't have time for it, and that just wants to explore more into what they don't know. So thank you.
Thank you, Michaela.
All right. So thanks, guys. Thanks for listening. I think, do we have a couple minutes to open it up? If you guys have any questions for these guys, feel free. If not, kidding.
So we might have incriminated a family member at a public meeting with theft, but so you need to work with your family because it is on the record.
No names are said.
Other than that, no, I would like to thank all of you guys. It's amazing to see this project and this class because a long time ago, I took an independent study and this wasn't available. I wish it was. And I love the fact that it's you get to find out what you may or may not like earlier. And that I can tell you from experience that will save you some time and some money because maybe the first thing you picked wasn't the right thing. And so I commend all of you for trying to figure it out at that age. And teaching is hard. Thank you for recognizing that like you guys. And it's harder to teach your peers. So don't give up on high school kids just yet. Right. So it could happen. There's somebody in the back that might have been a high school kid one time, maybe 2 people back there, but Thank you, guys.
Greatly appreciate this. This is wonderful.
I'll see you on June 5th.
Yeah, absolutely. I wrote it down, so I don't want to miss it. Are you gonna have the bagpipes here too?
That was last semester.
Oh, so what are you gonna do this time?
I'm not in it in this semester, but you can hear them from.
We've actually heard you on different meetings, I think, because so we've had bagpipes outside this wall a couple times. I'm assuming that's okay. No, it's a good change. All right. Good to know.
It's like, let's go by just for fun.
And is the book available for download or for purchase anywhere?
It is, I have an Instagram page.
Okay.
Called Nate Campbell Writes, where I post updates pretty regularly. Through that, you can find a digital copy of it.
Okay.
As well as I ask for feedback forms.
That's okay. So if anybody online, it's Nate Campbell Writes on Instagram. You got it.
And there are also currently 3 audio readings done by myself for those who don't like to physically.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that more than you know.
Yeah.
I like audiobooks. So do you have an Instagram for your tattoo work? Okay. That's good. Yeah, I think you should share your portfolios as often as you can. That's great work, guys.
Thank you. I'm really impressed with all of your projects. And I think that what I hear is that this is really a class to explore your passion projects. And that's really a skill that can, that you want to continue with throughout your life, and knowing what you're passionate about, and now having that foundation to how to build upon that when you're trying to find out what your passions are. So really impressive projects.
And
all
having
of
the
you.
courage to
Well
step
done.
up and do it.
If you love what you do, it's not technically work. So if you can find that out early, that's good work. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, no, thanks, guys.
Great job.
Thank you, Mr. Buckland.
I think that they're taking it.
So I was going to say for the younger folks, they do not have to stay present for the rest of this meeting if they would like to get home or to
Okay, let's go.
better things. Thank you all again very much.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Great job, guys.
So we have, for the ones of you that were here when Nurse Susie came and gave us a little presentation. And so there are a couple of policies that we want to adopt. And so we're going to start with the first reading of 2 of those policies tonight. I'm going to turn it over to Jeremy.
And there may be a word that I cannot pronounce. Sequelae is where I was headed. So this is the concussion policy. Symptom sequelae following a concussion has impacts on a student's ability to perform in both academics and extracurricular sports and activities. In addition, it has been conclusively proven that the health risks associated with the re-injury after a concussion are significantly increased. The purpose of this policy is to support students and student athletes who have been diagnosed with a concussion and to protect them from further injury. The goal is for a gradual return to learn and play following this type of injury. This policy also informs teachers, coaches, students, parents, and guardians about the protocols established to address the impact of concussion on academic performance and minimize the risk of re-injury associated with premature return to full participation in athletic activities. Section 2, the policy scope. This policy applies to all students in the Hartford School District. Section 3, definitions. For the purposes of this policy, baseline data means the information initially collected which serves as a basis for comparison with data subsequently acquired. Concussion means an injury that results in disturbance to brain function that is caused by a blow or to a motion of the head or body that results in the brain moving rapidly inside the skull. Concussion management means the protocol established to 1, remove a player suspected of having a concussion from further participation in school athletics, 2, monitor a concussed student. 3, track recovery. And 4, to allow for a graduated return to learn/play once the individual is declared symptom-free. Concussion reduction techniques means the techniques or skills intended to reduce the incidence of concussion. Graduated return to play plan means a gradual step-based program to return athletes to play after concussion. Hartford has adopted gradual return to play following a concussive injury guidelines developed by the University of Vermont Medical Center, formerly Fletcher Allen Healthcare. Return to learn plan means a gradual step-based program to return students to full academic performance. Healthcare provider means a medical doctor licensed under 26 BSA Chapter 23, an osteopathic physician licensed under 26 BSA Chapter 33, an advanced practice registered nurse licensed under 26 VSA Chapter 28, a physician's assistant licensed under 26 VSA Chapter 31, or a certified athletic trainer. For purposes of this policy, an immediate family member may never act as a healthcare provider for a member of their own family. Post-concussion impact test is administered by the Hartford High School Athletic Department and compared with baseline data to determine if the concussed athlete has returned to his or her normal pre-injury range of behaviors. Principal means the principal of a school or any person such as the athletic director designated by the principal to carry out a particular function. Section 4, policy statement. Since it is recognized that a concussion represents a serious head injury, the superintendent, building administrators, school nurses, and athletic directors working in concert shall develop a set of protocols that will constitute the district's action plan for addressing all concussion-related matters, and in the process, bring the district in compliance with state law. This document shall be known as the Hartford School District Concussion Management Protocol. It shall be reviewed at least annually and amended as necessary to reflect current medical practice and advice. It will also be included in the sports participation information that is provided to families on an annual basis. It is important to note that the best practice guidelines, no student should return to full contact play before first returning to a full academic load. Students may be at various stages of the two protocols simultaneously. The following information shall be contained in this protocol as related to concussion management. Athletic director, duties and responsibilities, obtaining written clearances as required, disseminating concussion-related materials to parents and student athletes so that 1, parents receive the concussion-related information required by the statute. 2, all students receive meaningful age-appropriate exposure to concussion-related information, ensuring that students suspected of having suffered concussions are disqualified from engaging in school-related athletic activity until they have been cleared to return to such activity by a properly qualified individual with appropriate return-to-play protocols in place. Goodness. Notifying the student-athlete's nurse, teachers, coaches, and counselor when a student-athlete is suspected of having suffered a concussion. Athletic trainers, duties and responsibilities. Administer post-concussion impact test, conducting the baseline data collection for all athletes, determining the student athlete is cleared to return to play in accordance with the Hartford School District Concussion Management Protocol, collaborating with district school nurses regarding student concussions, coaches, training duties and responsibilities, follow the CDC's guidance and training materials regarding concussions, thoroughly review 16 VSA 1431 and all of the CDC's concussion-related materials prior to the commencement of coaching activities and annually thereafter. Each coach of a school athletic team will receive training no less frequently than every 2 years on how to recognize the symptoms of a concussion or other head injury. Ensure and verify that the student athlete materials and the parent guardian materials are distributed in accordance with the statute, and that signed forms required by the statute are collected before the student athlete may participate in training or competition. Ensure that the student athlete's parent or guardian is informed of a suspected concussion as soon as practicable, but no later than within 24 hours of the time the injury has occurred. Ensure that no student athlete suspected of having a concussion may participate in athletic training or competition until the coach is notified that the student athlete has been cleared to return to play and has returned fully to the classroom. School nurses' duties and responsibilities. Forward copy of return to learn plan / play to teachers, athletic director, athletic trainer, and physical education teacher if provided by outside medical provider. Facilitate communication between school team, medical home, athletics department, and parent / guardian as needed. In the absence of a return to learn plan from a diagnosing provider, the school nurse will give a copy of a return to learn plan adopted by the Hartford School District, linked here, to the students' teachers, which they will follow based on symptom progression and classroom performance. Provide appropriate assessments and interventions during the school day as needed for symptom management. Coordinate with athletic director and trainer in obtaining written clearance for return to play. Principals' duties and responsibilities. Oversight of the athletic directors to ensure that 1, parents receive the concussion-related information required by the statute. 2, all students receive meaningful age-appropriate exposure to concussion-related information. 3, students suspected of having suffered concussions are disqualified from engaging in school-related athletic activity until they have been cleared to return to such activity by a properly qualified individual, either the district athletic trainer or a licensed doctor / nurse / practitioner / physician's assistant with appropriate return to play protocols in place and a written clearance note provided. The graduated return to play plan, the school, these links, I believe these are links. And so, but I can read them out. There's links to the graduated return to play plan and the school employee training requirements. Our student athletes' health and safety is of the utmost importance to us. If your athlete has an underlying medical, is this the waiver?
Yes.
I believe it is.
Parents.
So this is our parents waiver. But I'm going to read it. So our student athletes' health and safety is of the utmost importance to us. If your athlete has an underlying medical condition such as asthma, life-threatening allergies, seizures, diabetes, or any other condition for which a physician has prescribed a rescue medication and or written an action plan, these will need to be provided to the coach in order for your student to participate in school-based team sports. I understand that my child cannot participate in school sports until a copy of any applicable emergency healthcare action plan is provided. That's where the parent would sign. Next up is another statement. If my child is prescribed an emergency medication for an underlying medical condition, they will either carry it with them to all sports, games, and or practices or give it to their coach. I understand that not having the medication available will result in their not being allowed to participate for the day. Signed by the parent.
Thank you. That's the first reading for this one. And
Not that one. It's going to be the treatment of opioid
Right.
overdose procedures, which is on the following
Next page.
Yep.
Do you want me to do that?
You want me to? I can keep going.
either one.
I'm the policy guy.
You're the
Let me take
policy
a
guy.
drink.
That's why you get it.
The next policy reading will be the treatment of opioid overdose procedures. And this will have a policy ID at a later time that we will vote on again and warn. Policy title, treatment of opioid overdose procedures. Section A, purpose of procedures: to provide for a safe and orderly environment for the school, nurse, and other responders to administer the opioid overdose medication naloxone. Naloxone? Yeah. Section B, implementation of procedures. The following procedures will be implemented throughout the Hartford School District. 1, only the school nurses / associate school nurses are authorized to administer naloxone in the school setting. Section 2, school nurses shall be trained in the use of naloxone by resources that can include the Vermont Department of Health Opioid Overdose Prevention Program. 3, emergency response teams within the Hartford School District will be briefed by the school nurses on their roles in response to a suspected opioid overdose. 4, the school nurses will be responsible for procuring a 2-dose kit of naloxone with pre-filled syringes for nasal administration. At least one kit will be maintained in each school building. As needed, the school pediatric consultant will issue standing orders for this. The kit will have the following supplies stored with the naloxone dose: 2 pair nitrile gloves, 1 pocket mask / barrier device, 1 ambu bag, and written step-by-step instructions. 5, 1 dose of naloxone may be kept in a storage box with the AED in each school, and 1 complete kit will be kept in the health office with additional emergency supplies. The naloxone will be stored in accordance with the manufacturer's instructions. Inspection of the naloxone will be conducted regularly by the school nurse to determine that it has not expired and that the nasal atomizer is ready for use. Section C, administration of naloxone. 1, assess for signs of opioid overdose that may include unresponsive or minimally responsive, slow breathing, less than 10 breaths per minute, or not breathing, snoring with gurgling, limpness of the body, pale face, and bluish lips or fingertips. Number 2, call 911. Naloxone wears off in 30 to 90 minutes, which necessitates definitive medical care at a medical facility. So it is imperative that EMS be called. 3, alert the school emergency response team. 4, administer rescue breathing. 5, prepare and administer naloxone. 6, continue rescue breathing and be prepared to administer CPR if needed. 7, give another dose of naloxone in 3 minutes if no response or if minimal breathing or if there's minimal breathing or response. 8, lay the victim on their side in the recovery position. 9, after administration of naloxone, the school nurse and other staff will A, follow the Hartford School District substance abuse policy, including notifying appropriate school and district administration. B, if the victim is a student, note the event in the student's health record. C, notify the coordinator of school health services and the school pediatric consultant. D, debrief with persons involved in the emergency.
Thank you. So for us to do this policy, we have to have 2 readings, and then on the 3rd meeting, we will present it for voting for passing. So we have to read it this time, and we have to read it at our next meeting also. So thank you. Katie, would you like to give us an overview of H454?
Sure. Yeah, that'd be great. So Jacob is going to share a visual that we included in the packet for this evening. And what I think is particularly helpful about this visual is it differentiates what has just moved through the House in terms of education reform bill and what Governor Scott initially proposed, which I think is at this point a helpful way to think about education reform in the state right now, knowing that it's in flux and the bill has moved into the Senate at this point. And the expectation is that there's going to be a lot of changes and a lot of iterations before, it actually passes both bodies. So one thing to understand, which is prefaced at the top, is that there's a desire by the House and, through the governor's proposal for increased scale, for larger districts, for fuller schools. And that there are things like alignment of graduation requirements, which is something that I think we've been looking for quite some time, alignment of school calendars, which we've actually moved more toward this year, and alignment of data systems across districts. So those are some shared goals and shared things that I think a lot of individuals who work in education in the state have thought about a lot. So what I like about this visual too is the different categories to better understand what is being proposed and what is at stake as well. So if we think about the governance structure and we're thinking about the difference between the House Ed bill and what the governor proposed, the governor, as I think many of us are aware, has proposed consolidation into 5 districts. And I'm going to kind of editorialize where I can and where I think it would be helpful. there's still questions as to how those 5 districts and that number was landed on. And I think that the best hypothesis at this point is that the governor adopted the 5 regions that the Vermont School Association or the Vermont Superintendents Association uses for networking. So for example, we are in the Southeast region, and there's a Southeast regional network of superintendents. It's worth noting and it's worth saying that those lines were drawn for the purposes of networking, but we never conceived of thinking about whether or not those would make viable districts in terms of things like transportation, for example. So these are the things that I think have not been fully fleshed out. But the House's version of the bill would basically give a team of experts and educators some opportunity to really engage in a study of what consolidation could look like and what that district configuration could look like based on data and research. And I believe their charge would be to do that by December of 2026. As far as scale is concerned, there were some numbers thrown out through the governor's education plan that, again, there are questions about, the research and data to back what those numbers are. And the House would really think about class size minimums in relation to certain exceptions. For example, we've got the Hartford High School administration here, and I think that they would say, and we have talked about how if there were class size placed, and we all had to abide by those class sizes, we wouldn't be able to offer certain advanced placement courses, for example, because those numbers are always going to be most likely some of them below that class size minimum. And thinking about the funding formula, the House bill starts the transition to a weighted foundation formula structure. And Jacob, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but we've already thought about the funding formula that's proposed through the governor's education plan, and it would require significant cuts to our local budget. There'd be absolutely no way around that. So that has become really clear, and the House bill would start that transition, but would really be looking at the weighted formula and whether or not, again, that's viable for the state of play we're at right now. I think you all know that the timeline of the governor's reform proposal is really accelerated. And I think from the standpoint of those who have been advocating for the House bill, like the Vermont Superintendents Association and the Vermont School Board Association, this would slow down that pace and allow us to attend to certain things like, for example, if you look down a little bit, school construction was not something that was thought of as a part of the governor's proposal. And, the House bill considers school construction and prioritizes that by need. So slowing down the pace makes a lot of sense when you're thinking about certain obstacles that have not been fully, thought through and fleshed out. The local voice part, I think, is really important for the public to be aware of. The governor's reform proposal would centralize the authority and decision-making to the Agency of Education. So basically would dissolve the State Board of Education and would dissolve local school boards and would centralize that decision-making authority to the Agency of Education. So I would say that that's an important point for the public to be very aware of. It would look very different than it does now, for sure. And the voices of local communities certainly would not be as considered as they are right now. I think another thing that has risen to the top of concern has been that if we were to move to 5 districts in the governor's proposal, that would fully open up school choice. So right now, school choice is limited to certain schools in the state that have been, options for school choice for decades. This would open the whole thing up because you really couldn't consolidate into 5 districts without that occurring. So that's an important point to recognize as well. And I think, there have been a lot of loud voices about the concern that, that there's that potential to privatize public education. And that has been an ongoing concern from the public in relation to the governor's proposal. So, the bottom line of this is that the House Ed bill slows down the pace of this, allows for a study that would really thoughtfully look at what consolidation and configuration could look like, while the governor's plan pushes the more immediate top-down restructuring. And again, worth noting, this bill is now sitting with the Senate. My understanding is that the Senate is giving this something like 40 hours to look at again before they come up with their iteration of reform. So it's going to be really important that we continue to monitor the situation. I'm happy to provide updates as, we are aware of them. And I'm sure we'll be continuing to talk about this at the board and at board meetings, and I'll be continuing to update you all through my newsletters and other venues if necessary and more immediate. So if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you. I just have an additional comment. It's really important that you contact your local senators and House of Representatives. They need to hear from you. If you do it 5 times a day, that's okay. And if you need to find out who they are and how to contact them, get a hold of one of us and we can give you all of that information. But it's really, really even more important now that it's waiting in the Senate to contact your representatives and let them know how you feel about this.
One more thing I'll mention is I put this in my newsletter that I sent out for April. I am trying to organize a public forum, and I have invited all of our local legislators to that forum. I've also been continuing to invite the Secretary of Education, so I'll keep doing that as well. The tentative date that I put out there to the community through my newsletter was April 28th. It's looking more likely that that's going to be May 5th, so please put that on your calendars, and I will be updating that and sending out relevant information as I get it. I'm just waiting for everyone's confirmation that they can be there. But I'll send out a community message. I'll get it out on the Hartford listserv and make sure that you're all aware of when that event will be. But please tentatively plan on May 5th at 5 o'clock. And I will confirm that date and time with all of you, as well as letting you know who exactly will be there. And I'm going to ask, those legislators to come and prepare some talking points related to particularly the education reform happening in the legislature, but also what I'm hoping for, and this is relevant to our last topic of the evening in the governance section, I'm going to ask them to be prepared to hear concerns and statements from the community about the situation happening with PCBs in our district. And I think our local legislators, again, really need to hear from the community about the concerns that you have about our ongoing situation, which Jonathan is about to update us on.
Thank you, Katie. Again, I urge you to contact your senators and your representatives. Let them know how you feel. Tell your neighbors and your friends and your co-workers that we've got this plan. It's going to be a great opportunity for the public to come in here and hear what they have to say and to be able to ask their questions and express their opinions, our opinions. Jonathan.
Yes.
Feel free to turn the microphone whichever way you want. Just speak loudly in it.
Okay, so working. First of all, I'm glad to be following you two as opposed to any of those students, because this way I stand a fighting chance of being interesting. And second, I guess, I'm speaking mostly for the record and to the board. A lot of you have heard this before, so I will move through some of the initial stuff fairly quickly and trust that anybody will weigh in if they want further clarification. Some of it is not new, but I feel it's important to keep reiterating these things. From the very beginning of this PCB problem, we've had a couple guiding principles. One being the safety of students, faculty, staff, and the people who use our facilities. That is our primary concern always. The second being the support of programs, academic, co-curricular, and support services for students. The third being financial stewardship, both in the short and long term, to not just the district's budget, but to the taxpayers and really to any funding we receive from anyone. And finally, consideration of regulatory issues, how they impact us and how we work within those guidelines. So to some updates, White River Elementary School, as you may recall, a while back, the board approved air sampling. That approval was given after the state had said that they were not going to proceed with air sampling. So we did, and that was completed over the April break. That was the most efficient way to do it. We will have results of those air samples in 2 to 3 weeks, and we will learn what we learn. There's no way to predict it. Moving on to the high school and the tech, we're in the process of developing 2 requests for proposals, working with a local architect to craft bid documents that essentially look like a map of the building. One that shows all of the data that we currently have related to bulk sampling and the existence of contaminants, and also shows areas that have not been sampled, and also shows those very few areas that due to the age of construction are exempt. And that will be the foundation document for us to get competitive proposals for the remainder of the bulk sampling. The second is for stage 1 abatement activities. That phase 1 activity includes right now the gymnasium and what I would call the northeast corner of the building. Those are some of those areas are areas that had the immediate action level exceedance that we had to move out of. Some have the school action level exceedance that we have to deal with. Again, that bid document looks very much like a map of the building and says these are the areas that we have to demolish. There's no way around it. Both of those, an important point to make here is both of those processes are going to be competitively bid. We're not just going with the contractor that was assigned to us necessarily. Maybe they're good people, they do good work, but I think it's important at this point to make it very clear that I'm going to be leaning pretty heavily on our legal counsel to craft those documents, because our actions, our planning, and the actions we take have to be absolutely unimpeachable, so that when we go to recover the costs from Monsanto of the presence of these toxins, we have crossed every T and dotted every I. So I know how to build stuff, but I need the attorney to tell me how to say it. And that's a really critical point right now. It's a little frustrating because it slows us down a little bit, but we are in this weird space where we have to take the time to do it right. And we also have to do it in a big hurry. To that point, these 2 RFP processes can happen concurrently. They're not, one can be pursued independent of the other. The bulk sampling is happening largely in areas where we did not have air sampling exceedances. So what we are doing, and this references the regulatory acknowledgement, is we are taking what we learned from the process that the state imposed upon us and applying that to the rest of our facility to identify any liability that we might have. That process can proceed while we work on bidding and planning the first stage of the abatement that we know we must do. Important to note there is, I say abatement like it's just, one and done, but there's some other critical components. There's a huge engineering piece. For instance, right now the heating plant for this entire facility is housed in the northeast corner of the gymnasium building. That's problematic if we're taking the gymnasium building back and we still want to heat the rest of this facility. So there's some engineering work to figure that out. There's some architectural work so that we can do this work within the footprint of the facility and still have and are still able to use the rest of the facility in a safe and meaningful way for programs. We're very fortunate. We've had great conversations with the local fire marshal, who has stepped up and worked a lot with me and has basically said, we will figure this out. We're not entirely sure how, but we will figure it out. But there's going to be some regulatory pieces there as well. And then, you know, the probably the most important piece of that process is the interim operational planning that is going to fall most down on Nelson's team of how we take these areas out of play, the gymnasium, the auditorium, the cafeteria, the kitchens, and still provide all those services, those educational co-curricular services that, you know, the kids got to eat. We have to have phys ed, we have to have performing art, we have to do what we do. And all of that has to happen while this chaos is going on around us. This is much more than you know, a planned renovation where we have years to consider what we're doing. We're dropping a bomb here. And they, you know, I think, not to put Nelson on the spot, but I think he would agree that while we're going to do this and we're going to do it quickly, it's not a reasonable amount of time to plan. So everybody's going to have to be on board to be really sharp and really informed and really thoughtful and make decisions very, very quickly so that we can do this in a way that meets those 4 primary principles. That's a big chunk right there. And I'll move to something that's a little bit off that line. In talking with how we proceed, we are entirely dependent at this point on our pursuit of a settlement with Monsanto to fund all of this. Act 74 that was created by the state, caused us to do the investigation that got us to this point. That was not optional. The state is not funding any of the work we have to do, and we can't put the genie back in the bottle. We can't unknow what we know, and we can't avoid the obligation that we have knowing what we know. So, you know, just as I said, you know, every due diligence to craft the right documents for bidding and a plan moving forward so that it is unimpeachable in terms of any you know, pending litigation. Everything we do is wrapped up in that, and it's really going to take a monumental effort. I wish these seats were full so I could ask every person here to put this first on their list, because it's really that big a deal. I don't think, I've only been here 3.5 years, but I'm not sure anything this big has happened in this district ever. We are going to tear down 60% of the high school in all likelihood and have to rebuild it in record time. So that's my pitch for engagement, please. Finally, how do we keep moving forward? In order to do this right, there are some soft costs, some upfront costs we have to spend. We need engineering help. We need architectural help, both to plan for interim use so that we have, you know, for instance, legal egress, safe use of the building. We're going to have to change the way students come in and out. And we need to make sure that we do that correctly and safely. We got to figure out a temporary kitchen to feed kids. I can't make that up. Whatever somebody tells me to build, I can build, but we need help. And those soft costs are unfunded. They're not in our operating budget. The state is not offering anything. So in talking with Jacob and Katie about this and coming up with what we think are good options, what I would propose, or we would propose, and this requires the board's approval, is that we look in the short term, this goes back to that short and long-term financial responsibility comment, to use some portion of the existing facility bond to maintain cash flow without incurring additional debt-related expenses for the district. So as background to that, a very quick sidebar about where we stand with the bond. Right now, we have planned for this summer a series of bond-funded projects, and they are the first phase of roof replacement on Ottaquechee and Dothan Brook that are long overdue. We're doing those in phases for a couple of reasons. One is what we can accomplish in the summer without shutting the school down. And also we're kind of taking a worst first approach to those two roofing projects. Also a long overdue drainage project at Ottaquechee. We've had a water problem on the north end of that building. I think I can say forever. And so we're addressing that. We are also replacing the chimney in the middle school, which is long overdue. We're also upgrading the elevator in the middle school, which is long overdue. And we also are putting significant investment into repair and replacement of our exterior doors. And that's part of the kind of the physical security and safety component of that initial bond effort. I'll be honest with you, that would be a lot to do if we didn't have PCBs. And the price tag for that, all of this is getting competitively bid. We brought in some help with project management to make that happen. And within the next 3 weeks or so, we'll get prices back on each of those. But right now, the price tag for all of that work is somewhere around $6 to $6.5 million. I feel compelled to make this comment now. It may not be a popular comment, but it's true. One of the things that I'm dealing with daily in terms of our expenses is right now, for reasons that none of us can control, our facilities, materials, and infrastructure dollars are worth 75 cents. And there's nothing we can do about that. The chimney for the middle school is a prefabricated stainless steel specialized unit. You can't make one in your basement. Comes from Canada. It costs 30% more than it did 4 months ago. None of us could have foreseen that. And it's just a reality. So I make that point because when I talk about using the bond money to maintain cash flow, it's important for two reasons. One is that $21 million bond with all these considerations is closer to a $17.5 million bond now. And the other piece is it kind of makes it even more important to track all of our expenses because the settlement that we realized from Monsanto has to rebuild those bond funds to get us back on track with that effort. It's an acknowledgement of the PCB problem being the 800-pound gorilla. So one of the things I need to ask to the board tonight, and Jacob could certainly speak better to the financing intricacies than I can, is it acceptable to the board that we identify a portion of the existing bond dollars, facilities bond dollars, to use to fund the soft costs for planning the response to this PCB situation? That's not talking about using that money to address abatement or reconstruction at all. It doesn't touch it. What I'm talking about is just getting us to the point where we can plan, where we can make, we can come up with the plan we need to put students in these spaces in an interim measure where I can hire an engineer to figure out how to get heat underground to the high school so this space has heat next winter. We don't have it in our operating budget. And again, Jacob could speak to the options related to financing, but it didn't make a whole lot of sense to incur additional finance expenses. But I feel like we do need the approval of the board because those are dollars that were earmarked for another purpose. So that's where I stand. There's lots more to say on this issue, but I think, if I could, other than kind of the updates, which is very cut and dry, the couple of things I would say is I am adhering really strongly to those 4 guiding principles throughout all this because, in talking to attorneys and other people, I challenge anyone to disagree with any of those as solid principles that apply to every piece of this. The other one is we need to engage really quickly and really completely. We have not a lot of time to make decisions that are going to change the future of the district. And finally, we don't have, and I cannot imagine how we proceed without spending some money now to understand what we have to do. But also, I think it's important to acknowledge that this district does not have the ability right now to fund this abatement and reconstruction without really aggressively and with the full support of the community and the board and everybody involved, aggressively pursuing the settlement from Monsanto. And we need some help with that. We need, you talked about legislators and community members. And we need some horsepower behind this. I can do math. I can come up with plans. I can do the nuts and bolts, but this needs some support behind it. And the first piece of that is really, can we spend some money? Do you want to talk at all about the finance piece of it, the options related to financing these costs as opposed to using bond funds? Sure.
So one thing that we're kind of toying with is I've reached out to Masco Momentum. There's any bank that you could get a loan from. But at least, in our talks, one of the ideas that we're having is, we're already having interest on the bond funds. So if we could use some of that to kind of just help cash flow us until we get that settlement, just as like a little intermediate time between, that would be nice to save some money there if that's possible. But other than that, we're going to be looking at some other options.
Questions?
I mean,
Comments?
so, and I'll paraphrase some things like, so the reason why testing is important in every piece of the building is if you don't know it, if we choose to tear down a wall and we don't test it, and in the settlement, Monsanto says, how do you know that wall had PCBs? Well, we have the data for it. It's important that we have the data on every piece of this or every section of this building if we choose to one, abatement, two, rebuilding it, replacing it. But we know that already right now the building is contaminated and it's not safe. And I think it's just going to get worse. So for the community, I look out, there's 7 people in the audience. We really do want the community involved for this piece. We can hope that we get a settlement from Monsanto, but if you don't know how the legality or legal system works, we don't count on that. So if we don't get that settlement, it's going to cost us that money. But at the end of the day, I want a high school here. My kids go here. I went here. Like, this is a central piece to the community that I think people have not forgotten about, but just assume that it's going to always be there. And if they don't get involved or support this initiative, then you're not going to have it here. Performing arts, sports, how many people do we see in, the plays, the theater, the music concerts, the sports? You follow the student athletes and everything that goes on, pizzazz. Like, it's important to recognize that this is a central piece of the community. And if it's not a safe place for you to be in, then it's not going to be here. So I think, we have, in my opinion, right? It's not a vote. We have to protect everything that we can for this school. And if that's gathering the data or getting the engineers involved to make sure that we have, appropriate egress for fire evacuation, stuff like that. Getting alternative engineering involved to figure out how we're going to heat it. If we were to tear down that section while we rebuild it, or even how we're going to feed our students. I think that we have to do everything that we can to do that, and also be financially conservative. And if we have the means to do so, to prevent that initial cost, obviously being passed on to all of us as residents, I think it makes more sense to utilize the funds of the bond to move forward with what we need to do here for this project. Also, I mean, it makes no sense to invest in more structural things here if we just have to tear down that section of the building anyways. So I know we probably had some funds earmarked for this building. It probably doesn't make sense to do those if we're just going to end up tearing those things down potentially. So I would argue that, or ask that we do vote to utilize those the funds of the bond for this project to at least save the taxpayers a little bit of money right now. But I'll tell you right now that if we don't get that settlement, it's going to cost us. But we have to, as a community, evaluate whether or not we want this piece as a central part of our community. And in my mind, it is. So no questions, but.
Coach, did you have something to add?
Yes. I agree with the statement that was just made.
Kevin, we cannot hear you.
It's the building.
Can you hear me okay? Hello?
Is there any control for the room?
Jacob, can you hear me?
It's all up front. It's all up here. It's all on the laptop.
Yeah, I'm unmuted.
It does sound like it is, yeah.
It is. It's just the volume on the owl is.
Can you hear me okay? Jacob? Hello?
We have.
Hello.
If Coach speaks, I can read what his.
Another computer.
Hello?
Go ahead, Coach.
Can you hear me okay?
Good enough.
Okay. I had said that I agree with Jeremy, his statement. So I'm not going to repeat it. I have one technical piece that we need to make sure that is covered. And that is a check-in with our bond attorney and the auditor to ensure how we go about utilizing the funds when they were voted by the electorate for a different purpose. And we could get that answer pretty quick. But it's one, I think if we craft the motion in such a way that, barring a disagreement from the auditor and our bond attorney, that this would be the direction we'd want to go. If that makes sense.
Do we have anything else? Do we have?
Well, I'm just curious, Jacob, can you, well, feedback is throwing me off. Like what are some real numbers here? I heard 6 million for the projects this summer. What are we talking about for some of these upfront costs?
So the numbers that I threw out there for the summer projects are kind of placeholders pending final pricing for the work that I described. That work was queued up, 2.5 years ago when we started talking about the bond. Those were priorities that were identified then. So that has kind of been in the works before we knew about this PCV problem. The reason that number is relevant and the reason I spoke to the depreciated value of our dollars is because that leaves us with the remainder of the bond, which was 21 million eventually, or originally. So somewhere in the, depending on what's in the paper today, 12 to 15 million, right? As far as soft costs, immediate soft costs, we are going to have engineering expenses and architectural expenses. Both of those are likely to be six-figure numbers. It's really hard, and I'd be throwing a dart blindfolded to say exactly what those are, because frankly, we need a little help estimating. So for instance, a very concrete example, that heating problem, right? There's a couple different ways to solve that problem. It could be the creation of a new boiler room to serve this part of the facility. It could be the preservation of the existing boiler room with an underground line to serve this facility. The pieces of that we need to understand are, one is efficiency, obviously. One is just the reality of how that works. And the other piece is, when we make a claim for this, we need to claim recovery of those costs, and which is the most defensible path forward. So all of those things, some of that is an attorney, some of that is an engineer, some of that is an architect. But I think to get us to the point where we are looking at this realistically, we're going to spend a chunk of money. These are going to be hundreds of thousands of dollars in soft costs that we have to spend to move forward. Now, I don't think that it is a reasonable assumption to say we're going to commit the remainder, or even a significant portion of the remaining bond funds, to abatement and remediation, because frankly, that's not going to touch it. For perspective, those of you who were here for the Wilder School renovation, right? That was about a $5.5–6 million project. I had to leave. I'm saying this $5.5–6 million project. We did not have significant abatement. We did not have structural issues. There was an interior facelift, interior renovation of a space that's probably a fifth of what we're talking about. If you, for comparison, look at the costs associated, the bond that Woodstock tried to get to rebuild their school, they were looking at 110 million. By all reports, the people that I talked to thought that was probably, 30–40 million low. The square footage that they were talking about rebuilding is not that far off from what we're talking about tearing down. So the bond is not going to get us through this. My thinking is, if we keep the process moving by spending, if you need me to throw a number at it, it's going to be somewhere between $500 and $1 million in planning, 500,000 million in planning, to get us to the point where we know what we're facing. One of the reasons that's important is because really, what's been right in front of me since the beginning is we have to do this differently than everybody else did. We have to do this in a very business-like fashion. We have to do this fully informed. If I have to sit across a table from an attorney and they say to me, why did you choose to pursue bulk sampling in the remainder of the building in exceedance of the state's requirement based on air sampling? I have to be able to say with confidence, because the board approved on behalf of the community the philosophy that we're removing your contaminants from the building, period. And I have to say, this is how we did that, and it has to make sense, right? All of that is kind of front end logistical work before we even get to bricks and sticks. When I or somebody, Katie, hopefully, has to sit across from an attorney and somebody says, why did you choose the first phase to be demolition of your gymnasium? I have to be able to say, because we chose that because it's an isolated space. The fire marshal said we could calve off from the rest of the facility. We could install an independent fire alarm and sprinkler system and use it independent of all other activities. The square footage allows us to put 8 to 10 temporary classrooms in there, which allowed us to pursue the rest of this. I've thought about this, but we need someone to do the math and the engineering to get us to that point so that we can act on it, so that when we get to that point of litigation and the claim, we're rock solid. And that always, I say it over and over and over, the best dollars are the dollars you spend first. It doesn't matter whether you're building a doghouse or taking this on. The best dollars are the first dollars you spend. And I, I don't see how we get to the best outcome without the effort we need to make now. And if we have to spend money out of the bond to do that, and if doing that avoids additional expenses, I think we should. Another way to look at it is another school district in a similar situation with, similar demographics who are they're on the other end of this. They approach this process following I can't believe I'm saying the traditional state approach. And they have ended up trying encapsulation, trying ventilation. They moved out and in of their facility several times. Now, when they sit down across from Monsanto's going to say, well, okay, we agree, I hope, that our product is the problem, but we're not going to fund your mistake. Why didn't you just do it right? Like they're say, okay, you tried this, you tried that. Nobody thought it was going to work. You gave it your best shot. It might have been cheaper, but it didn't work. We're going to fund the abatement, but all that other work you did, the moving students in and out, the trailers, the tents, we're not going to pay for your mistake, your misjudgment. So I feel really driven, almost overwhelmed by the obligation to do this better than anybody else has done it. And that requires this initial investment to buy the expertise we don't have in-house. And if that's, $500,000, $750,000 in soft costs that we would spend on the project anyway. I mean, we don't have an option on the areas where we had the immediate action level. We cannot move people back in until we do an abatement. The state already came in and we walked through and they put foil tape up and ventilators and did stuff and it didn't work. The only thing that's going to work is getting rid of the toxins in the block wall, which means the walls come down. If you walk out of that room that we looked at and turn left and walk 50 feet, we have the same exact condition. So we can reasonably extrapolate that those walls are coming down too. So all of this money that I'm asking you to make as an initial investment in the process is money that will be spent anyway and will be subject to claim. And in this weird kind of Mobius strip logic, we have to spend the money in order to support our case to make the claim to reasonably recover the money.
The initial investment will protect our taxpayers.
Yeah. And if I can follow up with one other quick point to something you said, you talked about budgeted money in this building. When it became clear a few months ago that we were taking down walls, we immediately started furiously backpedaling. Like there's stuff we're just not doing. We're doing the bare minimum. Obviously, I hope most of it, the students, the faculty, the staff never notice. The water heater, the main water heater for this building failed catastrophically the last day before I left on vacation. We did not replace it. What we did is we took the water heater out of the culinary arts kitchen, which was only 7 years old and worked fine, and stuffed it into a custodial closet in the high school to provide hot water to the kitchen. I don't think we missed a single servery period in the lunchroom. We're doing it, but there's only so many rabbits in the hat.
Yep. Thanks, John. Tim, come on up.
I'm going to start by saying, Jonathan, I understand your challenges for sure. What I'm struggling with are a couple different things, and I'll start from something super simple. I was watching your meeting tonight. I'm trying to, get into the meeting and watch you. Can't really get in. The Zoom link's not there. Can't really participate in the meeting remotely because for whatever reason I couldn't. You could go to the link, but then it would go to your attachments for the meeting. But so that's kind of like, it sounds really small compared to all the other stuff you just heard. But I plead with you yet again on the technology and the outreach to the community needs major work. So let me step back from that. I think there's three things I want to try and touch on as efficiently as possible, because I don't want you guys here till 11 like the select board was the other night. Number one, bonds and connection with the community and money. Many, many years ago, I had a coffee meeting with Justin Barwood, and Justin, maybe you're watching tonight. And I said, Justin, you know, we as a community have some challenges, right? We have an ice arena that's falling apart and kind of decrepit. We have much interest in the community around creating a track. And what can we do? So what ended up happening with that, truth be told, is we floated a bond, right? And we floated a bond for, I think the scale was $11.5 million. And we got good work done over at Wendell Barwood Arena. We're all very proud of it. But we were kind of short on the track because we kind of underestimated the soils and what we needed to do to create a beautiful 8-lane track, which all of our students deserve. And incidentally, they're very successful despite of all that. And I was candidly, and I know I'm on a public meeting, I was pretty pissed off. And the reason why I was pissed off is because we had about $1.5 million left. And instead of considering that seed money, because the public had voted for two things. They wanted that hockey arena fixed and they wanted a track. And we failed as a community, right? We dropped the ball. We didn't do the soft cost analysis on the front end, whatever we did wrong. So instead we did the bathhouse pool thing. We tried to make that all work. Fine. But for me, and I've been in this community a long time, it's disingenuous because when you vote for something, when you vote for a budget, when we every year sit in front of each other and say, this is what we're going to spend to do this, and we either do it or don't do it for a variety of reasons, I think it's a colossal mistake that we take the money that people said, we need to fix up these schools. We need to do a new, boiler and fix up some doors and do all the things we need to do. And then we suddenly say, oh, no, we have this other arising issue and we're going to take this money and do this. That's a mistake, in my opinion. I think we need to go back out to the community and say, knowing what we know now, which is challenging, we need to have that dialogue with our community at large. We need to have a meeting that involves Esme Cole, Coach Christie, all the other people that are involved at the state level and the local level, and bang this thing out and figure it out together. Because if we do it sort of like, oh, well, we passed this bond and we're going to take some of this money and do soft costs and hope that Monsanto shows up and pays our bills, wrong path. Please don't go that route. I beg of you. I think really that we need to step back as a community and say, okay, so let me give you one more metaphor that maybe will help. I own a 2005 Honda Civic CRV. It's got 219,000 miles on it. It started to rust. I love the car. It's an amazing car, but I know its days are probably numbered, right? And with all due respect, I love Hartford High School. Both of my daughters went here. It's an amazing facility. We have incredible staff. We have amazing things here. The people are more important than the building, in my opinion. However, it's kind of a decrepit facility. We have an opportunity here as a community to step back and say nothing of the state and their mandates, and we want clean environments and we want our students to live in a healthy place to learn. We have to step back even further to say, what are the opportunities right now in Hartford to create a facility that is the pride and joy of the state? Because honestly, for me, the tech center is amazing, what they do there. We know that. What goes on learning-wise at the high school is amazing. But our buildings, and again, another crude term, suck. Our buildings are really decrepit here. They are. I mean, you can go to a state-of-the-art high school in New England and say like, wow, like it's a nice facility, right? It's clean and whatever. So what I'm kind of getting at is this idea that I just think we might be making a mistake to go down a path where we're trying to fix something old and decrepit and make it work instead of like maybe doing a little bit of a pause and maybe engaging the community a little bit and saying, what's possible? Can we create an even better facility by considering, and I know Woodstock's story is kind of sad, but we could do something better here, I think. And I was watching your meeting and I was thinking about all this and I'm like, please, like, let's not go down a path where we sort of piecemeal it and try and do this and try and do that instead of saying, we're an amazing community with amazing people. And I think we could create a facility that is far better than what we have here now. So I hope I've touched on my thoughts around that. And I will do anything in my power to be part of that process. But I don't think we should say, oh, we're going to tear down 60%. We're going to do this, we're going to do that, and hope that Monsanto pays us and whatever. It just seems like we're missing something. And I would encourage the people at the state level, at the community level, to get together and have a really genuine dialogue about how we migrate through this crisis. So thank you.
Thank you, Tim.
Oh,
Yeah, jump on.
First of all, thank you for your input. And I would ask next time you come, please bring 8 or 10 people as informed and engaged. Seriously, as far as my position on this, just to clarify, I don't disagree at all. I am going to do whatever you all ask me to do. I mean, I've said this before in my interview. I said, if you want an Olympic pool on the roof, I will build it. Tell me you want it and give me the funds and we'll do it. Yeah. But, no, but you understand what I'm saying. I think you're right. And his point about it has to be a community effort is absolutely true. You know, I can't make this decision. I can just provide options. The other point I would make, and all of that having been said, you know, if you write me a check, I'll build you a new school. However, we also have this reality that there are programs and students here now. So when I go back to the original kind of operating principles of, you know, safety first, obviously, and the second really strong pillar is to support the academic and co-curricular programs, no matter what path we take, we must figure out a way to do that. And I don't know how we do that if we step back too far for too long. Right? So if it means we make bigger decisions quicker, great. But those are big decisions and it's fast. And I think, you know, Nelson and I have talked about this a number of times. Students only get one first year. They only graduate once. A first year teacher only shows up once. A teacher only retires from here once. We owe them everything we can give them. So as far as what we can do, you're absolutely right. I wish these seats were full. I think I started with that statement because it does need the support of the entire community. But I do think, while philosophically I agree that's absolutely right, we have an obligation to keep kids here learning, eating lunch. I mean, that's kind of a big one for me. And not lose track of that aspirational piece. I would like to think that when the dust settles and smoke clears, almost literally, we will have a much, much better facility, regardless of how we proceed. We're not gonna, if our settlement from Monsanto gives us dollar to dollar the value of this building as it stands, we're not gonna replace this building as it stands. Why would we, right? If we get dollar for dollar the value of our heating system, we're not going to reinstall a heating system that was engineered 60 years ago. You know, that doesn't make any sense. So I think, you know, your point about taking it up a notch to this higher level of thinking is spot on. I just don't know. I need some guidance as to how I proceed in the near term to provide the facilities and the environment for learning and student support while you know, considering those aspirational goals and while putting us in the best possible position to fight for the reimbursement that we need. So
Come on up, Tim. Yeah, no, I would like you to come up.
Yes. I just want to add one more point to that. And I love your thinking. Burlington, we know what happened with Burlington, right? And they moved to the mall, which is kind of cool. Like, I guess some kids had a cool senior year at the mall. I don't know. And I'm only bringing that up because I think about the resources of our community at large. You guys are not an island, okay? Your school, and I know we've always struggled with the town school thing, but if you think about it, we have the Bugby Center. We have 3 elementary schools. We have pretty interesting resources in the Hartford community at large. So maybe with some creative thinking, some of these program challenges that we have of like students, and honestly, I think we might end up with better curriculum outcomes by integrating the Bugby Center. Maybe the tech center goes down and does lunch and there are food programs there and they're integrated with the seniors. Like, I think we need to do some little bit of out of the box about the resources we actually have, and maybe they're underutilized a little bit, of the 3 elementary schools, the middle school, and Bugby Center, and these other town resources that we can get through this crisis together, right? In terms of like allowing students that maybe they're not learning here, and maybe there's 10 students that can't occupy this space to learn science. Well, there's other spaces, right? So I just think that we have this opportunity to become stronger as a community and more integrated, getting through this environmental crisis together in a way that is low financial impact and creative.
Agreed. Thank you, Tim. Yeah, no, I think what we're lacking is the community involvement. I know we have the resources in this town. It's just how do we, where we struggle is getting those partners and people together. I know 3 of us in this room that were at the last select board meeting, and it was a very long one, and I left around 10 o'clock. Right. It was a long one. And the reason why I supported him is if I have to vote on spending a little up front, what we replace this room, if we should happen to replace this room, I really hope that it has a better audio visual presentation and, I don't know, just an internet meeting system that's a little more supportive. That's why you showed up, because you couldn't get in online. I won't get on our website on this meeting, but that's a different story. And I think, I don't want to invest in a building if we're running out of Band-Aids, right? So I graduated here in 96. The only thing that's really different here is we're missing a few lockers, and there's more coats of paint on the wall and a couple murals. We're still using the same guitars in the music room. I think we might have the same layer of varnish on the gym floor. And I really think that, I don't want to use the bond money that was earmarked for something else, but it makes, in my mind, and I hate to say it makes no sense to invest in this building if it's a lost cause. And I would love a brand new flashy high school. Honestly, I'd really love a brand new flashy middle school and elementary school too. But this one seems to be the biggest problem right now. And I think to do right by the community, we have to do everything that we can to minimize the cost to the community. I do want the community involvement I love the idea of the Bugby Center. I would love the VOTEC kids, the HACTAC kids to cook for the seniors. I would like to see our kids take care of our seniors, and our seniors be involved with more of our kids. I think that we do have opportunities in this town. We just don't investigate them. We don't invest in them. And I completely support that. But I think that the challenge is really getting people involved. How do we get people to care about their community again? The only thing that they seem to be vocal about is their tax monies when we raise them. But they're the same people that are sitting in the stands at a football game, at a baseball game. You were there.
Exactly. Thinking that.
It's what do you care about? You got to get there. And I think for us, to claim a little bit of that, I don't like, so I wasn't here. I didn't vote on the bond at that time, but I don't like taking that money away from what it was already promised to, what it was voted on and approved to go to. But it makes no sense to me to invest in this building if we're just going to have to tear that section of the building down or a portion of that. But my hope is that in doing so, we make this school better, right? So if we come on up, we have the structure, we have the roof, we can improve every piece of the inside that we need to.
So just one more thought, and I promise to go away. Could we consider a different strategy where if Jonathan is saying to you, we got some soft cost analysis here that are kind of challenging, like an architect and perspective and environmental. Could we present to the voters because I honestly think that bond is earmarked. I think people were told the story of what this school needed and they voted on it. It's kind of like I'll give you one more example, the parking meter thing, which drives me crazy. So we voted to not use TIF, no, I'm sorry, not TIF, LOT money for parking meters in downtown Waver. And then the select board said, oh, well, we're going to do that anyway with a different funding stream because we don't think the voters meant they didn't want parking meters. We think that meant that the funding, how do you know that? When you go into a voting booth and you say, we don't want parking meters and we don't want it from this money source, you can't split hairs there and say like, oh, well, we're going to make an interpretation that the voters said, no, we wanted it, but we didn't want to fund it this way. We don't know that. None of us know that, right? So all I'm trying to save you around this is the idea that if you think you have soft cost analysis challenges of $1 million, maybe it's 1.5 or pick a number. I think you owe it to yourself to go back out to the voters and say, hey, we got a new problem here in a community. We have to do soft cost analysis around that and set aside the 11.5 million or the other money and say, are you okay with this? Are you okay with us spending $1 million to understand our problem and then move forward? I think that's a way more genuine and proper way to go through this instead of saying, oh, well, we had this money and we were going to buy new doors, but now we have a PCB problem and we're going to spend the money this way. Don't do that, please. Please go back out to your voters and the people in this community and say, we all know we have a problem. We have soft cost front end analysis that we need. Go for it and do a special meeting, whatever you have to do, and get that $1.5 million or the dollars you need in to do the soft cost analysis to do this right. That's my recommendation.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you, Tim.
Tim, are you suggesting that we have we put it out to the voters and have a vote?
Yes, absolutely.
Do you know what the cost is that going to be for the town?
I don't know what the cost is, but
Lisa O'Neill can
Okay.
tell you. It's very, very expensive.
I still think it's better for democracy.
Okay, thank you. I'm just wanting to bring that up, that it's extremely costly, time-wise, but also financially for the town because of everything that has to be done with it. And even during the presidential election, our vote was so minuscule that we were in and out by 10 o'clock that night. I agree that we want our community to be with us. We want to be able to work together like this. I really hesitate to get that. And I don't know how the time wise. Jonathan, can you talk to
Because
them?
we're up against some pretty tight.
Yeah, okay.
I'll make one more minor comment.
Sure.
Cynicism erodes democracy, not always for the better. So I think you have to believe that you have to believe in that. You have to believe in the faith of your community to be honest, be open. And, so give us that number, like say, hey, if we run a special election, cost us 200,000. I don't know, like it's some number, but I think we just have to have that discussion because I still think that there's been examples that have eroded the trust of our community in the past. And I think we need to build that trust and that respect by saying, we want to hear from you. We want to know where this money is coming from, and be very transparent and open about that. I think you'll end up with a better outcome if you do that.
Colin?
I come to every meeting swearing to myself that I won't step up here and speak to you folks. And I just can't do it. I want to make 2 points. One of them is probably better reserved to the public comments section. I think you're still on PCBs, if I'm not mistaken. But I'm gonna combine them because they're so tightly interwoven. Putting information on your website putting out a superintendent's monthly communication to the community is not enough. You can tell by the attendance in the room, nobody is tuning in to what the school district is up to these days. And that's after there's been a fair amount of information about PCBs in this building. And you would think there would be a bunch of people here making sure that their opinion is heard and respected. And they're not here. And I'm not sure I know how to explain it. I guess I would say, this is just going off on a little tangent, but I'm about the most underemployed person in town. I don't have anything that I have to do other than cut a little brush out in Sharon and Stratford. And I can't quite get there yet because of mud. But I've got all the time in the world. And you probably regret it because I end up showing up here more than I probably should. But my point is, if I don't have the time to buckle down and read what's going on about PCBs and understand what Monsanto is up to and what you folks are doing and where the money from the $20 million bond issue is, none of that is transparent to the community. And I guess I'm lazy enough that I can't even get the energy up to explore all of that. And I've got more time than anybody has. So people that have a bunch of kids in school that have 2 jobs and they're trying to get kids to school, work a job, get home, take the kids to sports, fix dinner, do some homework and get to bed at a reasonable time are not, they just don't have the bandwidth to absorb what's going on here. So all of that is really to make the point that you have got to figure out some better way to communicate to the entire community what you're up to. And now getting back to the larger issue right now, the PCBs, maybe it's not a larger issue than communicating to the community. I went to the pre-town meetings, the budget hearing, candidates night, and absorbed all of that. And I didn't get enough information to be satisfied as to what the $21 million was going to be spent on. But the voters voted to spend $21 million on a list of stuff that the board told the public was absolutely critical, so critical that the district ought to go out, issue bonds, borrow $21 million and pay that back at great expense over the next 20 years, I guess. And now, and let me stop. There isn't anything that Jonathan has said to you that I'm not completely sympathetic to. He's doing an absolutely fantastic job figuring out what the approach should be on the ground, the building the pool, not the financing the pool. It's not up to Jonathan to figure out where the money is going to come from to do the analysis that has to be done with engineers and lawyers and auditors and whoever else has to be involved to figure out what needs to be done. That's for you folks and your consultants to do. That said, the $21 million was earmarked for specific things that the district promised the taxpayers, the voters, it was going to do to improve the condition of the district's buildings. And if you're now going to reorder that money to be spent in the high school for something that wasn't anticipated when that bond was passed, I think Mr. Christie has it right. You've got to go to your lawyers, the bond counsel, the auditor, and find out if you can disregard the will of the voters and use that money for something other than what you promised us you were going to spend it for. So I'm exactly where Tim is on this. You should not be spending the $21 million on anything to do with PCBs unless the voters tell you that that's okay for you to do. Now, in my mind, it would be short-sighted to spend any of the $21 million on the entire high school at this point in time. So to the extent that some of that $21 million was was earmarked for high school work, I guess as a voter and taxpayer, I could be convinced to reorder the spending of that money to cover the initial steps of figuring out what to do with the PCBs. But that's for me as a voter and all the other voters in this town to tell you that we're okay doing that. And I don't think, even if the attorneys come back and tell you that legally you can do it, I think it would be very short-sighted of the board to sit at the board table and quietly do that with nobody watching what you're up to, for them to find out later that you've redirected the spending of the $21 million for something other than what we were promised it was going to be spent on. So I think that would be foolhardy for you to do that without engaging with the voters. I think you need to have a special school district meeting. I think you need to bring in some people to testify to help Jonathan to back up what he's telling you is needed. You need to talk about what the reality is of knocking down, demolishing. I think Jonathan said demolishing 60% of this facility. It's a 60-year-old facility, and you're going to knock 60% of it down. And when you get all done replacing the 60% that you've knocked down, 40% of it is still going to be a 60-year-old facility, not necessarily built the way you would build a current facility for high school purposes. It's a Tim was right when he said the building sucks. I think that's what I don't want to put words in your mouth, but we can roll the tape back, I guess, if it's working. I just hate to think that we're going to take 60% of this facility and demolish it and then scramble to figure out where we're going to get the money to bring it back, and then find out that we've got expenses in the other buildings that haven't been addressed, needs in the other buildings that haven't been addressed, because we've taken the $21 million of the portion of the 21 that is earmarked for all the other facilities and spent it here on something. And just one final thought. You're never going to get a dime from Monsanto. Never, ever in a million years. Ask any farmer in this country that doesn't want to use their engineered seeds what Monsanto has done to them over the last 10 or 20 years. Monsanto has buildings the size of this building with just filled up with lawyers. They will not end up paying you anything. And if you think you're going to settle a claim with Monsanto, you're deluding yourselves. Thanks.
Thanks, Colin.
Thank you, Colin.
Did you?
Yeah, first of all, thanks for letting me about the financial decision. And I guess what I'd like to say is just to clarify a couple of things. In my position, not personally, but professionally, I have responsibility, but not authority, right? I have a great deal of responsibility and almost no authority. Hence my questions here, right? So related to the bond, right? The authority to earmark those dollars clearly resided with the town and the voters, and that decision was made. I then incurred a responsibility to use it wisely and in keeping with that directive, which I am very comfortable and confident we're doing. The items that I just listed that we have that are in process were the priorities that were agreed upon. I am very comfortable that the processes by which we have researched what to do have been sound, and that the bid process is in keeping not only with Vermont bid law, but I'd like to say we've even ratcheted up a little bit and pounded the pavement to get the best deals we can. So as to the status of that bond, as it was mandated, as it was authorized, I feel like we are fulfilling our responsibility. So put that over here. As to the Monsanto claim, I flipped that coin 1,000 times a day. We have attorneys, we have examples of other school districts, all this stuff. I can't respond or answer that other than to say, regardless of my opinion or your opinion, I have a responsibility to do everything in my power to make sure that our process is unimpeachable, right? Because no matter what we do, that has to be true. And then finally, while I, as much as anyone, you know, I've only been here for 3 years. I don't have the history that most of you have. And while I won't quote you because I don't want to say it out loud, you're not wrong. And we have a responsibility to continue to make things better, right? All of that having been said, and I am almost irrationally supportive of the aspirations of this educational community. All of that having been said, Nelson sent an email out this morning saying, by this date, we need to decide where we're having graduation. We need to make commitments to parents and grandparents who are going to show up. And that's a responsibility, right? Some of the things I can't change, that we can't change. We cannot use culinary arts facility or our health classrooms. We cannot legally. We cannot indefinitely delay action on those parts of our buildings where we have exceeded the school action level. We cannot. That's the B wing. That's the vast majority of the educational spaces in the building. We cannot put that off indefinitely. Right now, as Act 74 states, and this might be verbatim, we have to make every reasonable effort to reduce the air quality contamination in the building, which we are doing. We are sampling quarterly as required. We have ventilation systems that are running this building that have not run as well as they are right now in a very, very long time. And I have to give a nod to our facility staff for making that happen. So we're doing everything we can do, and we have a deadline. We cannot stay in the DOA indefinitely. And we also can't put our knowledge back in the bottle. We know that the contamination in culinary arts is the same as the contamination in the arts. We know that today by comparison of the building materials. We will confirm that through the bulk material sampling process. We can't unknow this stuff. So when I take all of that in aggregate, my request to the board to spend bond money maybe should have been stated differently. The reason I said that was because, you know, Jacob and I have been worrying about how we're going to do this, right? So we have a responsibility to do stuff, do it now, because parents and grandparents and kids are having experiences that we have to support, right? How that happens, I don't have the authority to see. That is up to the community and by default to the board. So if the board says don't spend funds, I would spend it on what it was earmarked for, and I'll do the best job I can. If the board says to Jacob, go out and float a $500,000 loan, that's normal, whatever, we'll figure that out and we'll proceed in that way. But I feel a responsibility to state very, very clearly is we have some really unfortunate time constraints here. I would, you know, I've said to Nelson too many times, if somebody came to me and said, we've got $10 million, we're going to renovate the gym, I would say, great, for 5 years, we'll do it. Let's have community engagement meetings, let's hire an architect, let's explore other facilities in New England, let's talk, you know, and let's build it right. We don't have that opportunity. We have exceedances of the school action level that require action very quickly. So if we're hearing from the community as represented, well, that's who's here, right? No, hey, that's who's here. In this context, the community is represented with more authority than I do. And I have a responsibility to take action. So if the bond is not an option, that's fine. I'm going to continue to spend the bond dollars as directed and as authorized by the community. You voted. We might disagree down the road over whether I did a job or not. We'll have that conversation then. But right now, I have a responsibility to make a plan. And I need some money to do it. So somebody who has authority or the community that has authority needs to step up really quickly and really effectively and engage in this process and authorize the work that we need to do, whether it be a soft cost analysis and see what which is really is, so that we don't do, and I don't want to be disparaging to any specific group. We don't do what some other districts have done. I don't want to do that. I want to do better. Whatever we do. I have said from the beginning of this, or in any context, I never want to compare ourselves. I want to look down on anybody and say we're doing it better. I want to look up and try to do it like that, right? And so what I'm saying is right now we're at a critical juncture where in order to do that, we need some expertise and we need to do it quickly. Nelson's got a plan in the next 3 weeks, right? 2 weeks for a graduation ceremony that we may or may not be able to hold in the gym. And, you know, one other point there, that maybe I should have said earlier, but there's a lot going on, is when I met with the fire marshal about our options, and I said, what does it look like if we carve the gym off in the school forever? It makes it a separate standalone facility. And we create a new entryway as part of this process, right? So this aspirational thing. And we put in a standalone fire alarm, standalone system. We create a handicap access that's direct line of sight. But we get rid of the hallway, which is the pinch point. He said, and I wouldn't, you know, if he was saying this, I would apologize, but he said to me, and I think he's not far off. We could probably put 750 people, 800 people in the building, which we cannot do today. That would be a huge gain, right? So there's room for those aspirations, and we cannot lose touch with them. We can't miss those opportunities. But at the same time, we don't have a lot of time to equivocate about how we do this. Somebody, I can't get rid of this responsibility. I know what I know, and I know what we have to do. I know what Nelson needs. I know what the school needs. I know what the financial considerations are. But somebody has to say, do this, because not doing it is not an option. So whether we spend the bond or not, I don't care. I could, you know, I don't want to spend it because I got to face it. My initial bond request was over 60 million. We've pared it down to 21. So I don't want to spend that money either. Right. And as I said, that money is now worth less than it was 4 months ago. But somebody's got to authorize something here. I feel like I come to these meetings and I keep dropping those bombs. Using words, demolish, reconstruct. You know, I don't know what else to say to get people to engage. But somebody has to say, proceed. We don't have time not to. Now, how that is done is up to you. But, you know, I'll do whatever you all want me to do. But the authority to proceed and how that process is funded and even directed has to come from. So nothing else. A little direction of what I do starting at 5:30 in my morning with help.
To have graduation, that would be graceful and good for our kids.
I'm looking at you.
I'm not saying it's easy.
Oh, I know. I know the work he's been doing too.
My name is Nelson Fogg. I'm the principal of Hartford High School. I'm also a citizen of the town. I'm not sure which I'm talking through in this moment, but it's great to know that we have community partners, Tim. And I agree, it's a wonderful community and there's a lot of folks who are going to support us. And there's about 130 kids who want to graduate here. And I think somebody has to represent those kids. And there's going to be another 130 that come to our school next year as ninth graders. And our school is our school. I'd love to take the 5 years that Jonathan just mentioned and think about how we could repurpose and create an incredible gymnasium. It's not a time frame that we have the luxury of having. In terms of thinking creatively, our staff has been doing that for 6 months, maybe. And we've considered a lot of the things that you spoke about. And what it kept coming back to was hearing our kids talking about how important this campus is, this school is, and it's the same campus and school, and it was as important to your children as it was to mine. And it's as important to future generations as it was to ours. And I would love nothing more than to have one of those schools that you mentioned that is some sort of spectacular school in New England. And it's our responsibility to build it here under the confines that we have, which I think over and over and over again, Jonathan has presented. Whether it's been at this forum or it's been at a public forum during town meeting day, he's been very clear. It's been shocking to, I think, both of us, the lack of response that we've gotten from the town. I said to Jonathan the other day, you'll get a response. We'll get a response when the skid steer drives through the wall of the gymnasium. Oh, people will care then. People will show up then. And I don't know why, Colin, either. They're not now. But I really struggle with this concept that we're not doing a good enough job of communicating it when people are standing at home with their ears shut. Whose responsibility is it to learn about these things? And whose responsibility to ensure that we are doing everything in our authority and our power to make sure they know? You know, what if you have a community forum and no one shows up? That's happened. Not particularly around this particular issue, but around other issues that we've hosted. Jeremy said a little bit earlier that the thing people care about is when they get their tax bill. They're going to care when their gym is no longer present and their auditorium is no longer present and they're wondering about their classrooms. They're going to care. My job is to ensure that we have a plan that ensures that every kid that enters our school or is considering the entrance of our school is able to see themselves here, feel like they belong here, feel like their educational opportunity is as good or better here than it is anywhere else, including that school that you're thinking about in New England. Because, as you said, at the end of the day, it's about the people, not the facilities. We will do what we need to do with what is here, whether it's 40%, 50%, 90%, or eventually 100%. And this school will not look like it looks now once we get done doing what we need to do, and we have to do it. We didn't choose Act 74. None of us in this building chose to have the building built when it was built, and we sure as hell didn't choose to have contaminants used in its building. Too bad. That's the state we're in. So we can't really dictate what happens to us, but we have all the authority in the world to deal with how we respond to what is happening to us. And I would venture a guess that this community will rise up, as you've said, and they will ensure that our students are taken care of, that they'll feel like they belong, and that they'll get the best education that we can possibly give them on par with anybody else, anywhere else, regardless of what the facility looks like. So that's been my challenge. A number of weeks ago, I said to Jonathan, which it's a little hokey and quirky, and I'm sorry for that up front, but Jonathan's interest in the school right now is school as a noun. My interest is school as a verb. And I think so far, we've talked a lot about school as a noun, and it might be time to start talking a little bit about school as a verb, because that's where the rubber hits the road with our students. So we'll graduate here. Not worried about that, because that's what we owe our kids. I just needed to know what do I have to do to create that plan. A number of years ago, during the COVID years, we were told over and over and over again, you can't have a normal graduation. You just can't do it. There's no way to do it. We did it. We parked cars on the football field. Families were in their cars. We used the local radio station so that everybody could hear the graduation, the speeches, everything that normally happened at a graduation happened that day. And it happened because the people in this community wanted it to happen and made sure it did. And I guess what I will tell you today is we're going to make that same promise to the students that are current and will be students coming into our school going into the future. And that starts with that very simple email I sent this morning, just trying to get confirmation. Jonathan wants to know what he's supposed to do at 5:30 tomorrow morning. I have like a week or two in advance of 5:30s that I'm worried about. So we'll get there with graduation. But I also think we have to look at the things that we don't have a choice about in terms of what was done. We have all the choice available in terms of how we deal with it.
Thank you, Nelson. Very.
Colin, come on.
Pardon?
Colin, come on up.
Oh, yeah.
I think I just heard Nelson say that he's got graduation figured out. And I'm pleased by that. And I want to backtrack a little bit and just make sure you all understand not one word I spoke was a criticism of anything that Jonathan has relayed to you over the past few months. I think he's doing a fantastic job getting his hands around this. I'm going to maintain my position that you shouldn't be spending the bond issue proceeds, the bond proceeds on anything to do with PCBs until the voters have given you the okay to do that. My suggestion to you would be maybe you should hold a special board meeting next week. That might get a little bit of attention from the public. What are they having a special meeting for? Maybe a few people will start to pick up that you're seeing the urgency and you're stepping out of your normal routine to do something a little bit different. And what I would suggest is that you authorize your finance director to go out and establish a line of credit or a borrowing for whatever amount Jonathan thinks he needs to proceed with the planning, the analysis and planning, anticipating that you will then circle back and schedule a school district meeting so that as you start to get clarity on how much he needs, you can replace the borrowing with some of the proceeds from the bond issue if the voters are amenable to doing it that way. And if they're not, then you've borrowed the money you need to get through the very short term, and you can then figure out what the next step is in terms of where the money's going to come from for the actual remediation. So that would be my proposal. Have a special board meeting. I think by statute, you're okay to go borrow money on your own account for the district. And I would do that. And I'd be a little bit generous with Jonathan, and I would make sure that there's money included in that borrowing that would cover whatever expense there is in Nelson's court in terms of planning for temporary classrooms or other facilities or whatever it's going to take to get us through the process of either remediating in this building or starting on something new and different. But I would borrow money right now. I think the voters would understand you doing that and be supportive. And that you then ask the voters what they want to do with the bond proceeds that are sitting and perhaps available to backstop the borrowing.
Jonathan, can you tell us what would happen if we don't get all of this done by the deadline? Can you tell the public that, please?
So can I say what will happen if we don't get all of this done by the deadline? So there's a couple pieces to that. And some of this is repetitive. The spaces where we had exceedances of the immediate action level, we cannot use them. The attempt was made to encapsulate and ventilate, and it failed. We have no option there but to tear down the walls, period. We know that. The areas where we had the school action level exceedance, and both of these are, you can look it up on the state website, what those parts per thing are. In those areas, the deadline is a little bit amorphous. We have to proceed with a plan to reduce the below the school action level. And the only way to do that permanently and definitively is to get rid of the source contaminants, right? And we know that the difference between the areas where we had the immediate action level in the air quality and the school action level in the air quality is a function more of environmental conditions than the contaminant source, right? I mean, that's my comment about if I send everybody home and close doors or keep everybody here and close doors in the town meeting comments, which again, I said that expecting my phone to explode and nobody called. I don't quite understand that, but it happened. So our deadline is really, we've kind of passed it. We've already relocated culinary arts. They're in a rented space that we're paying for every month. We've done that. We've already moved phlebotomy next door here. Phlebotomy on carpet's probably not a good idea. Just saying. Like some of these deadlines, they overran us. We're already dealing with it. The deadline of Nelson planning for where students are going to be when we inevitably tear down sections of this building, that's upon us, right? If we choose to do nothing, if we all say this is just too hard, it's too big, I'm going, consideration. We don't get culinary arts back. We don't get the health sciences back, ever, right? If we choose not to proceed with an abatement of those portions of the schools that have a significant action level, or the school action level rather, we will run out of time. As I said earlier, there's only so many rabbits in that hat. I cannot in good conscience tell you that those areas where we have a school action level will continue to pass quarterly samples, because this stuff is not lead, it's not asbestos, it doesn't stay put. It responds to humidity and temperature in ways that, frankly, I don't think anybody really understands. So we're on borrowed time there already, right? If we do nothing, we will lose the use of that space. If we do not quantify objectively the level of contamination in the rest of the building, we're rolling the dice in a huge way. And that is absolutely contrary to what I consider financial stewardship. What we're saying is it might be really dangerous and really expensive. We don't want to know. And that to me is not a defensible position. So what happens if we do nothing is we don't get culinary arts back. We have to find a new home for them. We lose that corner of the building. We don't get the health rooms back. We just don't, right? I don't think we can defensively not proceed with the bulk sampling. And so when we do that and we find out, as I expect we will, that the RRC, which is in every way the same as culinary arts and the same as the other areas, the cafeteria, the auditorium where we did bulk sampling, why would we get any different results, right? I don't see a world where you can say, I don't say it, you know what, we don't want to know. Those kids in the RRC, you know what, we passed this threshold with the state. We're just going to leave the fans on and let it ride. So we're kind of out of time already. If we choose to do nothing, we're just going to run out of time in painful segments, right? If I could wave a magic wand and write a giant check, I'd be all on board. Let's partner with everybody we can find. Let's get incredibly creative. And I have to say, I have to put in a plug here because I've been living this. There are folks in this building, and Nelson alluded to it, but I don't think he gave credit where it's due. If you don't think Jeff Marino has been racking his brain about how to work this out, you're not paying attention. I watched the performing arts program go from hand-wringing panic to we have a plan and engage students and move their programs. You know, the Broadway Ventures program is huge regionally, and they pivoted to the Lebanon Opera House, and they went from, oh my God, what are we going to do, to a really amazing program. And I don't think they're getting enough credit for that. We're doing it. People are doing everything they can now. What we can't do, you can't, is kind of too much navel gazing about this. We got to move because we're going to run out of time. We are out of time in some areas already. The performing arts program ran out of time 6 months ago, and they made it work. For now, we owe them the follow-up. We owe them the decisions and the actions and the authorized decisions to give them back an auditorium, a better auditorium, as soon as we can, right? So your question about what happens if we do nothing, we don't have this facility. And do we go then to the community and say, as Woodstock did, it's not 110 million, it never was. Anybody in the industry is going to say it was closer to 140 in Woodstock, and that might be why it failed. I don't know. I'm Switzerland in that community. But do we go to this community and say, okay, you gave us 21 million to repair the schools. We did some, the roofs don't leak at Ottaquechee and Dothan Brook. We have secured the exterior of those buildings. The elevator works reliably. The chimney's safe. The boilers work. But now we need another $250 million to build a high school. Okay? How do you do that in this community? How do you do that? So I feel like the position I'm in right now is if you all can find this groundswell of community support to fund a new high school, let's do it. But in the interim, we're out of time already. We're out of time for consideration. We know what the problem is, but we have to address it. How we address it is an open question. I'll do whatever you all decide. But we don't have, we're already out of time. And if we do nothing, we're going to run out of space. All right. I appreciate your vote of confidence, but I don't always feel as confident as you. I don't always feel the confidence you seem to have because I don't have all the solutions, but I know we have to keep moving. I give the guys who work for me the CPR speech all the time. Like, if you've ever taken a CPR class, the patient's dead. You just keep doing something and maybe you crack a few ribs, but you're not going to re-kill them. Right now, we have to keep moving. It's just what's the direction? And maybe it's an interim fix, maybe but we got to do something. We don't have time to do nothing. That's a long way to answer your question.
I wanted the public to hear this because I am very fearful that if we keep putting this off, we're going to be at that deadline and they're going to shut us down. At least not going to let us stay open with all of this mess. And if we're going to go to the voters and say, okay, we need another $15 million to help us get through the planning stages, how much is that going to cost us interest wise? Give me a guess.
That's not fair.
I know.
That's a tough
I
number.
don't know what it would cost. I just know that it's
20 years, 9 million.
there you go. And we've already, what Jonathan was trying to ask, and I think for me, it's very reasonable ask. Use part of that so that, and then even though Colin is fearful or absolutely sure that we will never get anything from the settlement, I think we're putting the safety and the health of our children and our staff at a great peril. I think we're setting ourselves up for some maybe some serious repercussions of sicknesses, of deaths. Are they going to come back now and say, okay, you knew this was wrong. You didn't take care of it when it should have been taken care of. So now you're going to give us $3 or $4 or $5 million to compensate us for whatever illness and or a death that happens to our family because they were either teaching or a custodian or they were a student up there and y'all just kept bickering back and forth about what we should do or what we shouldn't do. And I've said all along that we need to be putting our kids first. This is what we need to be doing. How hard was that? How hard we worked just to get that bond passed. I don't know. I don't know that the people can stand us coming to them and saying, we need this much more money. And on top of the money that we're going to have to use to get the work done, then also paying back the interest. When we're using the money, when we floated that bond, we did not know that this was going to happen. Right? We didn't know that this was taking place and that we were going to have to tear down part of our buildings and rebuild it so that we could take care of the problem. I would hope that our public would be understanding enough to say, yeah, this is kind of like a big emergency here and we need to take care of it. Yeah, I know, Colin. I'm looking around too at the public that's not here. But I'll guarantee you that I will hear about it before the night's over. And I'm okay with that. Because I still say we need to be putting these kids and our staff first. And to do that, Jonathan has got to get all of this information together. He's looking at how much money we've already lost just because of the tariffs. How much more it's costing us to get. Jonathan has talked to us about this before. How much more money it's costing us just to get materials in here to do that. Trust me, it's going to cost us a whole lot more money if we can't get this done now. That's my personal opinion. I am not speaking for the board. That is my personal opinion. Okay.
Come on up, Tim.
Oh, go ahead, John.
No, I was going to say, I was telling Tim to come on up.
I just want to say one other thought around that. And for me, the derivative of this, a lot of this is from the state. And I'm not picking on the state because we all own it, right? We want healthy schools to teach kids. But my problem with that, and I articulated this to Joe Major and Allison Clarkson on July 3rd in Brownsville, Vermont. I said, okay, so we have a state problem. We have schools in this state that say nothing about prices. A lot of these facilities are pretty decrepit. So what are we going to do? If we're committed to public education in Vermont, and I think we are, we can't just say like, oh, each community, you guys go figure it out. No. The conversation needs to happen at the state level because there's no way that each of our individual communities could ever carry this done. And if you look at the example that I was giving, and Nelson, I admire you tremendously, and I think we have an amazing school here. But Somerville High School, Somerville, Mass., that school is the brand new facility built, but it wasn't built by the community. It was built by a blend of the state and the community. And what I'm getting at is this idea that we have to have this conversation now to say to anyone at the state level, let's look at the holistic view of Vermont. And yeah, they want to reconfigure schools or whatever. But I think in that conversation, we have this opportunity to say, this is what we want and create it, but how are we going to fund it? And we should not be wrestling with this here at Hartford only. We should be wrestling this as a Vermont state that's committed to public education.
Completely agree with you. But we can't wait. And we were told even for testing that the state ran out of money before they could even begin to pay all the schools back for the testing. And they still haven't paid back all the testing costs. And Jonathan, and we went up there and got testing done that we just said, we're going to pay for this. If we get paid back, great, but we're going to protect our kids and our staff because we're going to get this testing done now. We're not going to wait till this time next year at elections when everyone is out trying to get reelected and they're making promises that they can't fulfill because there is no more money there. And that's a fact. And it's getting worse. Trust me, if all of this other stuff goes through, you can't even begin to imagine how that's going to affect not only our school, but every school in this state. It's not going to be there. And if they consolidate like they want to do, and they do that little districts, it's gonna be unbelievable. If that happens, and we will be in the middle of one of those districts, we want people to come to us. We don't want to have to send our kids over that mountain when they're in kindergarten and first grade and ride for an hour and a half, especially during the winter time with no seatbelts. What happens if that bus slides off and there's nobody that comes by for another 3 hours? I'm telling you, that's what will happen. We don't have enough. Our school districts now are fighting to be able to get qualified teachers. We consolidate, you know what's gonna happen? We're not gonna find those teachers. Am I right, Ann? The teachers are already talking, we're talking. How are we gonna combine union contracts? How are we gonna say, oh, well, up here in Burlington, they make $90,000 a year, and down in Bennington, they make $27,000 a year. So how are you gonna? It's not gonna happen. If we don't get this work done now, when we have to get it done. And yes, I'll be contacting the attorneys tomorrow to make sure that this is gonna be legally done. But we have got to get this done. We have got to figure out how to get that money now, because it's going to cost us more. The longer we wait, it's going to cost us more. And then it's going to cost us more. And then it's going to cost us more. The state does not have the money to pay us. Trust me, they don't. The feds certainly are not going to share anything with us. They're trying to take even more away. And I'm sorry, I'm getting political here, but I am so frustrated. I go to meetings after meetings after meetings. I go to testimonies. If I can't go to the testimonies, I listen to it that night. If you ever want to get as frustrated as I feel right at this moment, start listening to some of that testimony that's going. Start listening to some of those committee meetings. And then you're going to go, oh my, you're absolutely right. We're not going to get anything. And if that, we're going to be in worse shape. I don't know how to stress it enough and to make it reasonable for our public, for our taxpayers, our community to understand. The longer we wait, the more it's going to cost us. That's going to happen. And I don't know how to express it and to make you understand that great need that we have to protect. And it is our responsibility. That is in statute, that we as a board are responsible for making sure that our school district is protected under health and safety issues. If I had a child, well, I do have a granddaughter still going to this school system.
I really appreciate what you've just articulated and your stresses that you're feeling. But I also feel that at the community at large, the drivers of where we spend money and how we spend it are pretty real. And, a lot of my peers, the combination of like federal taxes, state taxes, local taxes, property taxes, it's causing stress for all of us. So I think we have to step back a little bit as a community and as a state to say, maybe we do less, or maybe we rethink how we're spending money and where it's going and all that. And I think, honestly, having those people in the room that represent us at the state level and having an honest dialogue about what's possible and not possible, I think would be a really great first step. So thank you.
Thank you. And Katie is working on that. Would you?
I'm just sitting back.
I could just, you fire me. Katie has been working to get a forum, a community forum. She asked our local representatives, she asked our senators, she asked the Secretary of Education, who we needed to be here so that the public can talk with them and they can make their presentations. And you faithful people who can will have an opportunity to to talk with our local representatives and let them know how you feel and let them answer the questions. Or put them enough on the spot that they've got to stop and stand back and think a little bit more about what and how they're planning things. So did most of our local people say yes?
Yeah, so I think I went over this earlier, Tim, that I had tentatively planned on April 28th, and that's what I put out in my newsletter. But that wasn't a good date for the majority of our local reps. So we're looking at May 5th at 5 o'clock, and that would include all of our local reps, all of our senators. And I invited the secretary of that again. So we'll see what shakes out, but mark your calendar of May 5th, Monday, May 5th at 5 o'clock is what we're looking at.
So I just want to, like, I joined the board for more transparency and to represent the community that obviously wasn't here, like the board wasn't trusted. I don't want to rock the boat. Obviously, I wouldn't do it if it wasn't legally allowed. So we definitely aren't going to pass anything tonight. We need to consult with legal, and honestly, I think my vote would still be yes, based on the ends policy of our school district. The mission of the Hartford School District is to provide and ensure a caring and dynamic learning community where the intellectual development of students is our highest priority. If we don't do this now, we're not living up to our policy. We're not taking care of those kids. I have a freshman in this building. This is going to affect him 100%. Like the kids that are hoping to graduate in this location where they've spent the last 4 years is important to our students. And we want to make sure that the experience that they get is what they deserve. You know, we owe it to them, I think, to do the right thing. But this also involves the future of other students. And if the state things happen that I don't agree with, I want this to be the school that the state chooses for kids to come to. I don't want we would move, or we'd probably pay tuition somewhere else. I want my kids here. That's why we moved back here. This is the school. I love this school. It's a little old, the paint's peeling and might hurt you long term, but this is our school. And if I'm living up to what I signed on for, it's taking care of our students. And second to that, unfortunately, is I want to take care of our staff and administration. They spend more than 4 years here. Nelson was my teacher. We need to make this building safe. I would love to make it state of the art. And I want the community involved. I don't want to do anything against the community's wishes. But if I can vote to move some cash and save the community and our residents money in the long run, and I think that's the best interest, I'm going to vote that way. I would encourage them to show up. I support the special meeting. But again, if you're watching this on Zoom or watching a recording of it, show up to that special meeting. Because if you want to be heard, you need to be present. And we'll work on the audiovisual stuff, but I encourage you to show up in person if you would like to be heard. Jonathan, you want to have a quick one? Yeah.
So it's late. And I just, listen to all this and I got to go back to this thing. As I said, I don't have any authority here. I don't have the authority to make these big decisions. I don't have the authority to determine the high level path forward for the district. I have opinions. I have a kid here too. I have strong opinions, but I don't have the authority to act on them in this context, nor do I have within the parliamentary process the right to make any kind of motion. So what I do have is a responsibility to propose a path forward right now. So here's what I propose. I have already engaged with a local architect who told me they don't have the horsepower to help us through this whole process, but offered to help me get bid documents together. Jacob found the money to create a purchase order to pay them a little bit of money to help with that. And I'm going to just do that, right? If somebody wants to criticize that, they can argue with Jacob. So I'm going to do that, right? I'm doing that already. Nelson is already planning graduation He's going to make it work. And that's going to happen. You all have to decide how we fund the soft costs for this work, and we have to do it quickly. We know that. But whether you have a special meeting or you talk to an attorney and that doesn't really matter. I think if I can come out of this with a commitment from the board that we are going to take action on those items that we know we must. We must, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, sample the rest of this building to determine if we have contamination in that wall. I think you'd say that's a must do, right? So I'm going to move forward in that direction. We must figure out what it's going to cost to do the abatement we know we have to do, right? So I'm going to move forward with that plan, right? Because there's no authority required. That's a responsibility at this point for all of us. So those are a couple of things that I'm going to proceed with, saying right now that I'm going to put that work out to bid and I have no way to pay to get it done. And that puts us in a worse position because now when Nelson goes and does the dog and pony show to invite students to come to this district, when Erica goes and does to invite kids to come here, when parents like me consider whether they're going to send their kids here or somewhere else and agonize over that decision, people are going to say, well, they know they have a problem. They know what they have to do. They're just not doing it. So I'm going to proceed with everything I just explained, and you all are going to end up in exactly that position. Sorry. That's where it's at. So, I appreciate all of your comments. I appreciate your impulses. I appreciate Nelson saying it like it is. And I'm going to proceed as I just proposed, knowing I don't have a checkbook to write anything out of, and it's going to put you all in a really bad position. Fair? Probably not, but there we are.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Thank you. Well, I think we pretty much covered public comment.
Is there anybody online that has a hand raised?
Thank you, gentlemen. And thank you, Nelson.
Thank you, Nelson. Thank you, Tim.
And Tim, and
Colin.
Colin too, yes.
Faithful.
See all my notes, they're in order. Consent agenda. We have appointments, resignations, or retirements.
I do. I have 2 appointments. I have 3 resignations and I have a retirement. So appointments, I have Erin Melton joining White River School in 5th grade. I have Christine Spinella, special education interventionist at the Dothenbrook School. For resignations, I have Mary Zantzinger, who was teaching music at the Ottauquechee School. Megan Gieselhart, special educator at the Wilder School. And I have Emily Brown, a special educator at the Dothenbrook School. And one retirement, Martha Cochran at the high school, math teacher.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
And do I have a motion to accept the consent agenda, which will require or includes the appointments and resignations and the retirements, and also the minutes from the April 9th meeting?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Hey, so moved and accepted. Next board meeting is going to be 5/7/23. And which one of the two of you would like?
5/7/23.
Or
5/7/25.
5/7/25.
Going backwards instead of front.
I will handle the
Okay.
meeting evaluation. So the meeting date is April 23rd, 2025. At the end of the board meeting, I'm going to just read through it. I'm not going to read the statement. The board was prepared for the meeting, satisfactory. The board's time was spent on ends, not means, satisfactory. Each board member was given opportunity to participate, satisfactory. Board treated all persons with courtesy and fairness, satisfactory. Board adhered to Robert's Rules of Order, satisfactory. Board adhered to its adopted governance style. It emphasized outward vision. It encouraged diversity in viewpoints. It exercised strategic leadership, not administrative detail. It maintained distinction between board and staff roles. It used collective decision-making. It looked to the future. Satisfactory. Move to adjourn.
Does not need a second. It's automatic. Thank you all very much.
Jacob, you got a blank one?